Chapter 1987. Noah didn't know why Franny was so hostile to AIC. However, the strength of that ugly monster was undeniable. She was definitely a level 1 adventurer. It was a genuine LV5. There was not a trace of exaggeration. If it was the previous AIC, even if she was known as the strongest swordswoman in Eulalie, it would not be so easy to defeat Franny. Unfortunately, in the last expedition, AIC used the noble phantasm that Noah lent her to kill the floor master in the deep area alone. She had already upgraded to LV6, LV5 and LV6. At first glance there was only one level difference, but the gap between the two could be described as heaven and earth. For those who relied purely on the grace given by God to improve their strength, this level difference was almost impossible to overcome. Even if AIC did not upgrade to LV6 for a long time, it was the same. From the very beginning, AIC had been unstoppable, forcing Franny into an irreversible disadvantage, proving this point even more. In other words, facing AIC, who was at LV6, Franny, who was only at LV5, had no chance of winning. Unless Franny had some hidden trump card. Or Ista's family had some hidden trump card. Therefore, from the beginning, Noah did not pay much attention to the battle between AIC and Franny. Instead, he focused most of his attention on the combat prostitutes of Ista's family. It turned out that Noah's idea was correct. Ista's family did have some important hidden trump card. And that trump card quickly appeared in front of Noah. Quick! Push it up! With the order of a combat prostitute of Ista's family, a large cargo was pushed up. It was a large iron box used to transport supplies. The capacity of the box was very large, at least able to fit several people. There was a piece of cloth covering it, making it impossible to see the situation inside. However, Noah felt it. In that box there was a presence that was not strong, even a little weak. Aisha reached out and opened the lid of the box. In the next moment, Noah almost doubted his eyes, because what was in the box was neither a monster nor goods, but a person. There was a girl sitting upright at the bottom of the box. She was wearing a kimono and a feather-like armor on her head. The girl wasn't human. The girl had waist-length golden hair that was brighter than AIC's. She had a pair of fox-like ears on her head and a fox-like tail on her back, proving that she was the real deal. Vulpera. Noah's brows furrowed tightly. What was Ista's clan going to do? Was that Vulpera a member of Ista's clan? Then why put him in the box? While Noah was confused, Aisha lowered her head and whispered to the Vulpera girl in the box. In the next moment, the Vulpera girl raised her head and revealed a beautiful face that was both charming and pure. She looked at Franny, who was being suppressed by AIC, and lowered her head again. Right at that moment, a faint mana fluctuation surged from the Vulpera girl's body. Wong! An inexplicable trembling sound rang out, and everyone present saw it. Specks of light flickered from her body like fireflies, covering her huge toad-like body. In the next second, everyone, including Noah, was shocked. Friolini, who was being suppressed by A's, suddenly let out a loud cry. Above the giant body, an unbelievably violent pressure suddenly surged. Croak, croak, croak. Is it finally here? Franny laughed heartily as she observed AIC's astonished expression. Her eyes began to move irregularly from top to bottom, left to right, as a frightening murderous glint flickered within. Go to hell! With an ear-piercing roar, Franny's short arm swung down like a thick club. Bam! The astonishing power caused the ground to suddenly shatter, exploding with a terrifying impact. It was mixed with pieces of rubble, shaking in all directions and shooting out like bullets. AIC obviously didn't expect Franny to suddenly become so strong. While she was shocked, the rocks that turned into a hail of bullets rained down on her like a storm. AIC didn't dare to be careless. She swung the thin sword in her hand, which transformed into streaks of cold sword radiance that interweaved like raindrops, and met the rain of bullets. Bam, 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 bam. Amidst the continuous muffled explosions, the broken rocks that had transformed into bullets were all detonated by the gorgeous sword radiance, raising gusts of wind and dust. However, at the same time, a shadow also enveloped AIC, blocking the sunlight that shone on her body. AIC, Tiona, Tiani, Leafia, and the other girls cried out in alarm. Almost at the same time, AIC abruptly raised her head and looked towards the sky. Whoosh! Amidst the sharp sound of breaking air, a huge black shadow transformed into a meteorite that fell from the sky like a mountain. It rubbed against the air and heavily smashed towards AIC. Boom! Amidst the deafening roar, the huge body that had turned into a black shadow smashed the ground until it exploded. Layers upon layers of the ground caved in, causing the storm-like impact chi to sweep up and explode in all directions. At the critical moment, AIC took a step back and leaped a small distance away. Therefore, the huge black shadow that fell from the sky didn't land on AIC and cause a direct hit. However, AIC wasn't happy but rather shocked. This was because the huge black shadow that fell from the sky had already raised its arm, and with its overwhelming size advantage, it swept towards AIC along with the shockwave. Whoosh! The whistling sound of a strong wind rang out. The fierce blow from the short limbs caused Freddy's fist to become like a cannonball that ruthlessly smashed towards AIC's face. Looking at the momentum, even if AIC's head didn't explode, her fragile face would be smashed into pieces if she was hit. Freddy was so vicious that her attack was aimed at AIC's face on purpose. Clang! The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. AIC raised her weapon in front of her in time to block the cannonball-like fist that came straight at her. However, the powerful force still sent AIC flying like a ball that was slapped away. Her feet rubbed against the ground and left 2 deep marks on the ground. She only stopped after sliding for more than 100 meters. Phew! Tiona, Leafia, Bale and even Lily couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. The situation just now was really too thrilling. One wrong move and AIC would have been seriously injured by that toad girl before anyone could react. And it would have ended with her disfigurement. Tiona, and Rafia were enraged when they realized this. Only AIC slowly lowered her sword-wielding hand. The sharp-eyed Noah saw it. AIC's hand that was holding onto the sword was trembling without a trace. It was a phenomenon of numbness from the tremendous force. AIC looked at Freddy with a solemn expression and murmured, "LV6. That's right." At this moment, the combat power Freddy displayed was not something a LV5 could possess. Although they didn't know what method Freddy used, it was an indisputable fact that Freddy's combat power suddenly increased to LV6. Why? AIC was confused. At this time, Aisha and the others had already closed the lid of the box and made the Vulpera girl disappear in front of everyone without anyone noticing. Except for Noah. That Vulpera girl is the problem. With absolute certainty, Noah determined the reason for Franny's sudden increase in strength. Tiona, Leafia, and the others who didn't see the Vulpera girl were both furious and bewildered. Croak, croak, croak. Franny was still laughing triumphantly. What LV6 strongest swordswoman? Sure enough, it was only to this extent. Croak, croak, croak. Hearing this, the confusion on AIC's face gradually disappeared. She looked at Franny, her hand reaching for the bracelet on her wrist. Seeing this, Noah finally spoke. All right, there's no need to use your trump card in this situation. Chapter 1988. When Noah's voice echoed clearly in the surroundings, the sinister atmosphere in the air seemed to be crushed by an invisible force that appeared out of nowhere, disintegrating into nothingness. Suddenly, everyone's eyes narrowed. Only then did the combat prostitutes of Estes clan notice Noah's existence, and they all widened their eyes. Isn't that the tyrant? He's here too? Oh my god! A group of combat prostitutes who were at least LV3 were all shaken. Aisha also frowned tightly, and her body tensed up involuntarily. As for Franny, her huge face suddenly froze, and she couldn't react at all. Tyrant. For all of Eulalia, there was really no existence more famous than this title in recent times. That was because all the residents of Urali were watching the live broadcast on the screen, watching how Noah uprooted and defeated Apollo's minions. Furthermore, Noah had publicly rejected the courtship of the beauty goddess at the banquet held by Freya's family. He had even fought Otto, who was LV7, to a standstill in front of everyone. And all of this had happened only a month ago. In this way, it would be difficult for Noah not to be famous. To put it bluntly, in the current Eulalia, if the adventurers on the street were asked who they didn't want to provoke the most, 99 out of 100 people would definitely mention this title. Tyrant. an existence that had recently risen to the top of the world with fierce forces and was known by everyone. Even Ista's family members had to fear him. Under such circumstances, the group of battle whores couldn't react for a while. Instead, Tiona, and Leafia took the opportunity to come to AI's side. "Ms. AI?" Leafia asked anxiously. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." AI slowly shook her head. Not only did she withdraw her hand from the bracelet on her wrist, but she also put her sword back into the scabbard on her waist. However, AIC's eyes were fixated on Franny. The light particles that were still lingering around Frey's gigantic body began to gradually dissipate. Frey's aura, which had suddenly skyrocketed, gradually decreased from LV6 all the way back to LV5. That was Friuli's true rank. The explosion just now was merely borrowing the power of another source of energy. Just like Noah, who used the item called Red Dragon Emperor's Boosted Gear to greatly enhance Bale's strength. What kind of power was that? Magic? Skill? Or was it a prop? AIC could not understand. Logically speaking, the kind of power that could greatly increase one's ability value, and even increase one's level, shouldn't exist. Otherwise, in this world, the existence of levels would not be constantly mentioned. It was precisely because of the absolute nature of the difference in levels that people would firmly believe in ability value, and use it to determine the strength of adventurers. If there was a power that could ignore the difference in levels, it would have caused a huge uproar. Noah's existence was an example. Undoubtedly, he was just a newcomer, an adventurer who had just received God's grace not long ago, but with a low level, he was above the first-level adventurers. His reputation spread throughout the world in less than a few months, and he was at the top of the adventurers. However, there was still an explanation for Noah's strength that did not match his level. After all, before the gods came, there were also ancient warriors who trained hard and could be compared to the monsters in the underground city. When Noah first came to this world and showed strength that was different from God's grace, Loki had already mentioned that Noah was likely to be in existence similar to an ancient warrior. In this regard, the gods all had the same opinion. In this era, it's simply an extinct species of giant panda. AIC didn't know what the so-called extinct giant panda was. However, Loki had said such a thing to AIC. After 1,000 years, there should be a child among the people of the lower realm who can make the gods amazed. Noah was the child who made the gods amazed. Moreover, he was the only one in 1,000 years. Such a person, until now, who knew how many miraculous methods he had come up with, and he was indeed worthy of the gods' admiration. But even so, when Noah took out the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, and learned about its ability, everyone still felt dizzy even though they were mentally prepared. One could imagine how amazing it was to be able to give people the power to subvert levels. Not only did Noah have such means, but even Ista's family also had such means? That was simply too illogical. AIC was not the only one who had such thoughts. Tioni, and Rafia also had such thoughts. "Hey, Toad Girl." Tiona stepped forward and glared at Frayne. "What kind of despicable method did you use to increase your strength?" This sentence made Bale's expression stiffen. Before coming to the 18th floor, he was the one who used a method to increase his strength. So this time Bale was shot even though he was lying down. However, no one would pay attention to a new LV1 adventurer at this time. The girls of Loki's family stared at the battle prostitutes of Ista's family. And the battle prostitutes of Ista's family looked at Noah standing on the side with fear in their eyes. "Tyrant." Aisha stared at Noah and said in a deep voice, "This is a matter between Ista's family and Loki's family. Do you want to interfere?" A matter between Ista's family and Loki's family. Noah grinned. "When did your target change to Loki's family? Did all of Freya's family members run away?" With Noah's reminder, Aisha came to her senses and hurriedly looked at where Freya's family was. Of course, there was not a single trace of a single person in that place. In other words, the mission given by the master god of Ista's family had ended in failure. Thinking of this, Aisha looked at Franny angrily. "Franny, look at what you've done. Let's see how you explain this to Master Ista." "Explain my ass." Franny was even more furious and didn't choose her words carefully. "I don't care about a bunch of trash. Stop looking like you're teaching me a lesson. It's still too early for you." "Is that so?" Aisha sneered. In that case, I hope when you go back, you can still be so stubborn in front of Master Ista. Freeney's entire body began to tremble. It was not because of fear but because of anger. Damn it! Bastard! Damn it! Franey looked at Noah with bloodshot eyes and growled. No matter what, I'm going to give that doll girl a good beating today. If you stand aside and watch, you can play with me all you want tonight. Hearing Franey's words, everyone looked at her differently. It was as if they were looking at an idiot without self-awareness. Their eyes were full of pity. What do you think? The offer is tempting, right? Franey didn't realize that she said something stupid. She cracked her toad-like mouth and laughed. Compared to that ugly doll girl over there, you might as well be with this old lady. Seeing that you're the world-famous tyrant, this old lady will be yours from now on. You should feel honored. Seeing the toad monster spouting nonsense, Tiona, Rafia, and even Lily had the urge to vomit. Bale's face turned green and white, and his heart was about to explode from fear. On the contrary, Noah looked at Franey, who thought she was beautiful, and said emotionlessly, "Too bad." As Noah said that, he reached out his hand and pulled the stunned ace into his embrace. He then said with a faint smile on his face, "I like the ugly doll girl you're talking about. You should go and take advantage of someone else." Franey's bloodshot eyes instantly widened. AI's pretty face became extremely red. In this situation, Noah glanced at Aisha and said indifferently, "Go and take back your toad. Hurry up and bring your lazy toad back home. Don't let her come out and make a fool of herself." This sentence made Aisha's expression extremely ugly. Chapter 1989. If possible, Aisha really wanted to take off Freeney's head and see how much paste was wrapped inside to make her become so self-righteous. Others didn't know why Freeney was against AI, but how could Aisha not know? It was all because of jealousy. Just like the main god of her clan, this toad girl always thought that she was the most beautiful one, and that no woman in the world could surpass her in terms of beauty. However, as the saying goes, the audience's eyes are the brightest. Ista always thought that she was the most beautiful one, but others always praised Freya, who was also a beauty, and this shattered Ista's self-confidence. As a result, Ista developed a one-sided jealousy towards Freya and constantly targeted Freya. That was fine. After all, Ista was also a goddess of beauty. Her appearance was indeed peerless. Even if she didn't use her charm ability, she could still make all the men in the world fall head over heels in love with her and forget about their home. In other words, Ista still had the capital to compete with the target of jealousy. It was understandable for others to think that she was not as good as Freya and thus become jealous. However, what was Freeney? A lazy toad that was so ugly that it could make people vomit actually dreamed of being the most beautiful person in the world all day long. For this reason, it even looked down on the main god, who was known as the goddess of beauty. It really made people feel that it was no longer a problem with its eyes, but rather a problem with its head. However, this toad girl was like Ista. When she thought that she was the most beautiful person, others kept praising the beauty of AI, who was also at LV5, saying that her beauty was comparable to that of a goddess, and everyone coveted her. Therefore, this self-righteous toad girl was jealous. A few years ago, she even went to find AI and fought with her, but it was to no avail. Because of this, Freeney had always harbored hatred and jealousy in her heart. She could not wait to crush AIC's admirable face. Not only was her appearance ugly, but her heart was even uglier. And this jealousy finally could no longer be hidden after Loki's clan announced that AI had leveled up and became the strongest female swordsman at LV6. Aisha remembered that on the day she heard the news, Freeney kidnapped hundreds of men for 3 days and 3 nights in a row, and squeezed them all to death just to ask one question. Who is more beautiful, me or that doll girl? It was this question that caused the deaths of hundreds of men. It was easy to imagine what kind of answer the hundreds of men gave. In the end, this toad girl didn't realize it. Competing with the swordswoman in terms of beauty? What right did she have? Just like what Noah had said, this person was simply making a fool of himself. It was extremely ugly. Unfortunately, she didn't have this self-awareness. Looking at the scene where Noah hugged AI tightly and AI who was lying in his arms shyly, and Tiona, Leafia, Lily, and Belle were all dumbfounded, Freeney's giant body began to tremble. The oppressive feeling seemed to symbolize the anger in its owner's heart. It gradually began to spread and made the entire space heavy. Are you blind? Freeney was like a volcano about to erupt. Her toad-like eyes were filled with blood as she stared at Noah and growled. That doll girl can't even compare to a single hair on my body. And you chose her? Yes, I chose her, Noah said without hesitation. If this counts as being blind, then I'll probably thank the heavens for giving me a pair of blind eyes instead of a pair of perfect eyes to look at a toad like you. Huff, huff. Freeney's breathing began to become louder like a mad bull. She clenched her fists so tight that even the veins began to bulge. If it was another man who said this, Freeney would have already torn him to pieces. No, tearing him to pieces was a light punishment. Based on this toad girl's usual style, she would first squeeze the man dry and force him to say that she was the most beautiful woman, then tear him to pieces. But the man in front of her was not someone who could be easily squashed. Let's not talk about Freeney, let's talk about Aisha. That idiot Freeney didn't know her limits, but Aisha did. Therefore Aisha could clearly see. On Noah's seemingly smiling face, a pair of dark and deep eyes flashed with a cold light from time to time. The cold light made Aisha feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. So Aisha knew. This youth who appeared to be conversing amiably with Freeney had long since been annoyed by Freeney's foolish actions and words, and even loathed her. If Freeney didn't know her limits, then it would only take 1 second for this toad girl to die in this underground city and never return to the surface. Then Aisha gritted her teeth, took a deep breath and suddenly said, I've long heard that the rumored tyrant could resist the charm of the goddess of beauty and even rejected Freya's proposal. Now that I've seen it today, the rumors are indeed true. While the others were puzzled by his words, Freeney was startled for a moment before she came to a realization. Right, this man could even ignore the charm of the goddess of beauty Freya. Even in front of a beauty, he wouldn't easily compromise. Although she was more beautiful than the goddess of beauty, it wasn't that she wasn't beautiful enough, but that the man in front of her wasn't attracted to women. Thinking of this, Freeney only felt the anger in her heart disappear without a trace. She snorted. A little brat who doesn't even understand the taste of women, it's useless to say anything. The self-righteous Freeney had long forgotten that Noah was holding AIC tightly in his arms. How could he not be attracted to women? This toad girl was really stupid. But Noah was impressed by Aisha. You're the same. No wonder you're called the heroine. Noah looked at Aisha and suddenly smiled. You have more tricks up your sleeve than I thought. You don't have to compliment me. I'm just a slut who loves pleasure. Aisha met Noah's gaze, licked her lips and smiled like a carnivorous beast. If one day our tyrant comes to Happy Street, I hope you can name me to serve you, then I'll be satisfied. The explicit words made the innocent girls all blush, but the battle sluts all looked at Noah with passionate eyes, obviously agreeing with Aisha's words. Since Freya's family has retreated, then there's no need for us to stay here. Aisha mentioned intentionally or unintentionally. Freeney, let's give the tyrant some face. I'm not interested in a man who doesn't know how to appreciate women. Freeney glared at AIC. But, the puppet girl over there, remember this, I'll tell you sooner or later, in front of the secret weapon of Arista family, LV. 6 is nothing. Secret weapon. Everyone had a reaction to this word. But at this time, the battle sluts had already begun to retreat. Under Freeney's lead, they gradually left. Only Aisha stared at Noah. Her eyes flickered, and after struggling for a while she sighed. Boy, I hope you can come to Happy Street. Leaving this sentence, Aisha turned around and left the scene. Noah's group watched Ista's family members leave, and they all became silent, as if they were thinking about something. That? After a while, a somewhat embarrassed voice slowly sounded. Hearing this, Noah finally reacted. He lowered his head and looked at his arms. There, AIC's pretty face was slightly red, and she didn't know what to do. Hee hee. Tiona giggled. Little brother. How does it feel to hug AIC? Tiona suddenly had a teasing expression. Leafia's eyebrows were raised, and she looked very angry. Lily sighed while holding her forehead. Belle's face was full of envy and jealousy. Looking at everyone's expression, Noah laughed dryly and quickly let go of AIC. The moment the warm embrace and broad chest left, AIC couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. But then, an indescribable feeling surged in AIC's heart. It was like sadness. It was like reluctance. A strange feeling. Chapter 1990. After the people of Ista's clan hurriedly left, the adventurers who had been hiding came out one by one, wiping their cold sweat with lingering fear while sweating profusely. Ista's family's whore. She actually left without saying a word. She didn't put us in her eyes at all. Don't think that's the end of it. I will definitely send the bill for destroying the flowers and plants here to Ista's family. Forget it unless you don't want to go to Happy Street in the future. Do you dare to collect that stinky money from others? Be careful not to be dragged to the city gate by those whores in the middle of the night. Then you will be completely famous. Forget it, I can't afford to offend them, can't I just hide? That's right. The group of adventurers cursed as they returned to their homes as though nothing had happened. Only a few adventurers who had been violently smashed holes in the ground in front of their homes continued to grumble, but they quickly filled up the holes in their homes. For this town, this level of destruction was really nothing. Although this was a safe floor where monsters wouldn't appear, it didn't mean that there were no monsters. For example, the monsters that came down from the 17th floor or the monsters that came up from the 19th floor would all flock to this floor and occupy it as their king. That was why the town was built in such a dangerous place like a cliff. It could be used to block some monsters, and it could also be built using natural rock walls and crystals. It was easy to build a town. It was said that in the past, there were monsters that attacked this town and destroyed it completely. However, the adventurers here didn't care at all. When the monsters attacked, they immediately retreated. When the monsters finished venting, they would leisurely rush back and rebuild the town. In any case, this town was simply built with wood and tents. Almost all the adventurers who could come to the 18th floor were adventurers with LV2 or above. With the ability value of a group of adventurers with LV2 or above, rebuilding a temporary town made of wood and tents couldn't be done in minutes, but it could be done overnight. Therefore, these adventurers who opened shops in the town to make money had long been used to it and didn't really take it seriously. By the time the surrounding adventurers had mostly dispersed, the ground that Freeney had destroyed had already been filled up. It was as if nothing had happened, leaving everyone speechless. As for Noah's group, they moved to a hotel and began to discuss the matter of Ista's clan. I think we should teach that toad girl a lesson. In a cave that had been transformed into a hotel, Noah's group sat around a messy wooden table, listening to Tiona's complaints. That ugly freak has been causing trouble for AIC for no apparent reason. It's so annoying, Tiona grumbled. If Finn and Riveria were here, they definitely wouldn't have let them go so easily. Why do we need Finn and Riveria to be here? Tioni laughed. If you really want to teach Ista's family a lesson, you have me, Ista and Ista. Isn't that enough? Yes. Rufia seemed to have been angered by Freddy's disgusting self-righteousness, especially when she thought about how Freddy, with that toad-like face of hers, kept saying that she was prettier than the Miss A's she was looking forward to. Her pretty face tensed up. Although the leader of Ista's family is LV5, Miss Ista and Miss Ista are also LV5, and Miss Ista is LV6. They can definitely teach Ista's family a lesson. Although no one knew the overall quality of Ista's family without seeing it with their own eyes, but in the group of combat whores just now, except for Ista, the rest of the combat whores were only LV3. There was no need for two LV5 level 1 adventurers to deal with an opponent of that level. Either Ista or Ista could deal with it. In that case, there was nothing to be afraid of at all. This was what Leafia wanted to express. In this regard, Bell just shrank his neck and didn't say a word. Because there was a clear gap in the level of the conversation. LV5 adventurer can take care of a group of LV3 battle whores? That was true. However, in the same way a LV3 combat whore could deal with Bell, who was LV1 easily. Therefore, Bell couldn't interrupt at all and could only shrink his neck and listen. Lily, on the other hand, frowned slightly and said, "Don't worry. But why did the leader of Ista's family suddenly become strong?" Lily pointed out the most crucial question. At that moment, everyone, including AIC who had been silent, cast their eyes on Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah couldn't help but recall the Vulpera girl who was put into an iron box by Ista's family. So Noah said so. There's no doubt that Ista's family should be like me. They must have mastered some means to increase their strength in a short time. Otherwise, with the strength of that arrogant toad girl, it's impossible to win against AIC. Noah looked around at the group of girls. The question is, what does that means? Everyone suddenly became silent. Only Tjorn suddenly tapped his palm. Now that you mention it, I suddenly thought of something. Everyone's gazes immediately gathered on Tyogni. Hey AIC Leafia, do you remember there was such a rumor before? Ista said so. Ista's family is actually hiding their strength. Hiding their strength? Belle and Lily were slightly startled. Hiding their strength? Noah's attention was also attracted. AIC Leafia and Leafia seemed to have thought of something and looked at each other. Little brother, you should know about it, right? Although an individual's ability value is a secret of a clan, if it's only the level, it must be recorded in the guild. Only then can we plan the level of the family, Ista said with assurance. Previously, a few clans who were hostile to Ista's family complained to the guild, saying that Ista's family members were far stronger than the official level reported to the guild. In other words, the information about the family members was false. I remember that at that time the guild seemed to have accepted the lawsuit and was involved in the investigation. In the end, it was confirmed that this matter was just a rumor. Leafia tilted her head. Moreover, Ista used this as an excuse to bite back at the clans and even the guild that brought up the accusation and demanded a huge fine. After that, she annihilated all the hostile family members and sent all the overgods back to the heavens. This matter caused a huge commotion at that time. But Belle seemed to be a little confused. What does that have to do with this matter? You still don't understand? Lord Belle? Lily sighed out loud. If Ista's family members have mysterious means to increase the power of their members, then this explanation makes perfect sense. Ista's family members did not hide the level of their family members, and did not lie about the information of their family members. However, Ista's family members had mysterious means to increase the power of their members. During battle, they could display greater power than their actual level, which was why it gave others the impression that they were lying about the information. Thinking of this, everyone felt that this explanation was very reasonable. It's one thing for Master Noah to have such a method, but even the other spawn tribes have similar methods? Lily asked in a disappointed manner. Could it be that it's so easy to change levels? The girls of Loki's family laughed bitterly. Of course that was impossible. Otherwise there was no need to be so surprised. In fact, even Noah did not expect that other than himself, there was someone else who had such means. The scene of the Vulpra girl sitting in the box kept floating in his mind, making Noah fall into deep thought. Seeing Noah like this, AIC asked softly, "What are you thinking about?" Hearing this, Noah suddenly smiled and said such a sentence that stunned everyone. "I'm thinking if I should really find time to go to Happy Street." Chapter 1991. The cold night wind began to blow through the earth. The white walls and giant towers that reached the sky silently exuded a solemn atmosphere. In the night, countless magic stone lamps illuminated the streets like stars, making the entire labyrinth city Aurali as lively and noisy as ever. In a corner of the bustling labyrinth city, there was a street with a somewhat different atmosphere from the rest of the place. This street was lively as well. However, the liveliness had a kind of atmosphere that made people feel hot all over. There, the buildings were like hotels and they were filled with people. There, the color of the magic stone lamps were very ambiguous peach-colored, making people's emotions involuntarily rise. Over there were many women wearing very bold evening gowns that exposed their entire backs and waists. They were all wearing coquettish and heavy makeup. There, the men all had a somewhat wretched smile on their faces, holding hands with scantily clad women, walking into the surrounding buildings very intimately. Under such circumstances, the whole street was filled with a charming atmosphere. People would unknowingly be led by the nose by the atmosphere, walking towards a depraved but unforgettable road. Here was Happy Street. Almost all the buildings here were brothels. Almost all the women here were prostitutes. The men were here to flirt with women. The women were here to compete with one another in terms of beauty. There was no doubt that this was a place where decent people would never come. However, this was the territory of Ista's clan. The base camp of Ista's clan was in the deepest part of Happy Street. It was a magnificent and beautiful palace. At this moment, on the top floor of the magnificent and beautiful palace, outside an open-air balcony, there was a figure. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a woman with 1,000 charms. The woman had a gorgeous crown-like crown, and her body was also full of jewelry. She looked like a noble woman, giving people a feeling that she was born in a very luxurious family. However, this mature woman only wore a belt that could not be called clothes at all, a waistcloth and a thin cloth belt that covered her full upper body. The amount of skin exposed to the air was shocking. Her figure was slender, and the curves of her body were perfect to the extreme. Her appearance was outstanding, and could be called as beautiful as a fairy. His brown skin had an indescribable wildness. There was a choking sweet perfume lingering on her body. This person was the master god of Ista's clan, the leader of the Happy Street, the goddess of beauty Ista. However, this beautiful goddess kept looking at the direction of the Tower of Babel. Her eyes were filled with dark emotions that even mortals could not understand. That emotion was called jealousy. What right do you have to be so high and mighty while I have to be looked down upon by you in such a small corner? Ista stared at the top of the towering Tower of Babel with her sharp eyes. The words she uttered were filled with heart-palpitating hatred. In what way am I inferior to you? Undoubtedly, they were both beauties, but Freya was much more famous than Ista. Undoubtedly, they were both charming, but no one thought that Ista was prettier than Freya. In addition, Freya's clan was much stronger than Ista's clan. All these advantages made Ista's heart filled with unparalleled jealousy and hatred. Sooner or later I will drag you down from there. After leaving this sentence, Ista withdrew her gaze. She raised the pipe in her hand, took a puff and then exhaled a thick cloud of smoke. At this time, a young man came in from outside and reported to Ista respectfully. Lady Ista, Lady Friuli and the others are back. Back? Ista didn't even turn her head. She lay on a chair on the open-air balcony and said casually, Friuli, that idiot probably won't report anything to me. So let Aisha come over. Yes. The young man retreated. Not long after, Aisha walked into the open-air balcony with her slender and tall legs. She didn't lose her elegance and didn't care about trifles. As soon as she came in, Aisha said directly, We failed. Really? Ista still looked indifferent as if she didn't care about the result at all, but her slightly narrowed eyes looked up and stared at Aisha. What's the reason? An unexpected person appeared, Aisha said faintly. We ran into a level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan. A level 1 adventurer from Loki's clan. Ista raised her eyebrows and almost immediately understood. Could it be the swordswoman? Yes, Aisha replied concisely. Then that ugly monster Friuli went berserk and made all of Freya's clan run away. That toad girl is really a person who can't do anything right. If it weren't for her LV5 ability value, I would have kicked her out. Ista snorted. Forget it, it's just a group of members who can't show up in front of Freya's clan. It's not a big deal if they don't stay, as long as they can disrupt Freya's clan's mission. The reason why the battle horse of Ista's clan appeared on the 18th floor, and even the LV5 leader was sent there, was because Ista received news that Freya's clan seemed to be on the move. They gathered a lot of members and entered the underground city. Although she didn't know the purpose of Freya's clan, since they gathered a lot of members, and almost all of them were adventurers above LV3, it was definitely not a simple mission. When she heard this news, Ista didn't hesitate to send out the elites of her clan. Her purpose was to disrupt Freya's clan's mission, and make them go for wool but come home shorn. In order to suppress Freya, Ista really put in a lot of effort. Don't worry about the trash of Freya's clan. Ista concluded with this sentence and then changed the topic. However, Freeney shouldn't have done anything to the swordswoman, right? If something happened to the swordswoman, then Loki's clan will definitely fight us to the death. Only this must be avoided. Fortunately, Freeney didn't take down the swordswoman. The strength of the female swordsman is indeed quite amazing. Even Freeney, who leveled up, couldn't do anything to her. Aisha narrowed her eyes. In the end, if it wasn't for the tyrant, I'm afraid that the battle wouldn't have ended so well. The tyrant. Ista finally raised her head, straightened her body, and looked at Aisha. The tyrant who rejected Freya's advances has also appeared? Aisha nodded. Suddenly, the corner of Ista's mouth slowly rose into an arc that made people's hearts beat faster. Aisha. Ista asked this sentence casually. In your opinion, what do you think of the tyrant? Flawless. Aisha gave the highest evaluation in her life without any hesitation. There's no doubt about his strength. His personality is calm yet domineering. He's without a doubt the most outstanding man I've ever seen in my life. I can understand why the beauty Freya couldn't help but woo him in public. Even after being rejected, she still pursued him relentlessly. Is that so? Ista nodded with satisfaction, and the smile on her face became more and more charming. If the powerful man who can resist Freya's charm and the beauty's proposal is won over by our Ista clan, how much do you think Freya will be stimulated? I don't know how much that goddess will be stimulated. Aisha closed her eyes. I only know that even Freya's clan and Loki's clan coveted the man, but they couldn't get him. No matter what, it won't be so easy to win him over. How do you know if you don't try? Ista's eyes were filled with endless ambition. Because he is a good man, there is a sense of accomplishment when you conquer him, right? I don't disagree with this statement. Aisha's mouth also rose. But what do you plan to do? Ista didn't answer Aisha's question. When she thought about what kind of expression Freya's face would show when she brought the man in front of her, Ista felt hot all over. No matter what, that man will be mine. Definitely. Chapter 1992. As night fell on the surface, so did the 18th floor of the underground city. Of course, the night on the 18th floor of the underground city was not truly night. It was just that the crystals that emitted light dimmed. The crystals that provided sunlight on the 18th floor were sometimes bright and sometimes dim, making this safe floor also have day and night. Of course, the time of day and night on the 18th floor was different from the surface, but the difference was not that big. Therefore, even if there was a slight difference in time, it was not a big deal. However, if monsters suddenly attacked at night, it was almost no different from the surface. It was an extremely dangerous thing. Therefore, adventurers were not willing to camp in the wild. They were afraid that they would be attacked by monsters unknowingly and die in their sleep. Apart from those adventurers with great abilities or large groups of adventurers, at the end of the grassland not far from the entrance of the 17th and 18th floors, a bonfire was burning slowly in front of a forest. Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia were gathered around a bonfire and chatting. Bale and Lily were setting up tents. It seemed that they were really preparing to camp with the girls of Loki's clan. It was a pity that Tiona and Tiny kept complaining about sleeping with them, but Noah vetoed it in the end. Although the 7 of them could only share one tent, Noah made a prompt decision and directly gave the order. The boys and girls took turns to rest. When one party rested, the other party was responsible for keeping watch at night to avoid being attacked by monsters. Tiona and Tiny, the open Amazon sisters, were the most reluctant about this, but Rufia and Bale were both relieved. It would be too difficult for this pair of innocent men and women to sleep in the same tent with the opposite sex. After the basic rules were set, everyone moved here and began to prepare to camp. As they were borrowing someone else's tent, Bale and Lily took the initiative to set up their tents, while Noah went to the river to get water for everyone. Rufia, who was chatting around the bonfire, turned her gaze to the entrance of the forest from time to time, faintly showing some worry in her eyes. What's wrong, Rufia? Leafia? Tiona immediately giggled. Are you worried about little brother? Of course not. Rufia's ears trembled, and she was a little embarrassed and angry. I'm worried about Miss Ace. Is it Ace? Tioni immediately turned his head, looking towards the entrance of the forest as well. It is indeed a little worrying. Taking a closer look at the entrance of the forest, AIC's back was facing the crowd. Her head was raised and she was looking at the dark forest. Her beautiful blonde hair swayed in the wind. It was as beautiful as a painting, attracting Bale's attention and peeking at her many times. Those who didn't know better would think that AIC was in a daze. However, the young ladies of the Loki clan who knew AIC well understood that she was in low spirits. It must be because of that toad girl, Tiona said hatefully. After the fight with that toad girl, AIC has been like this, listless. That's not surprising. Tiorn sighed. AIC has always been pursuing strength. It was not easy for her to rise to LV6, but she couldn't even win against a LV5. Even if the other party used some means to increase her strength, she should still feel resentful, right? Miss Ace shouldn't be so stubborn, right? Rufia seemed to be really worried. Why don't we go and comfort Miss Ace? Comfort? Tiona was a little distressed. But I'm not good at comforting people. It would be good if Riveria was here. Tioni shrugged. Although Riveria is not very good at comforting people, at least when facing Riveria, AIC can't help but open up and talk to her. Then what should we do? Rafia began to feel anxious. I can't just leave Miss Ace like that. Tiona and Tioni both nodded. They also couldn't just leave AIC alone. Just when the three clumsy little girls didn't know what to do, a voice barged in. What can't be left alone? Hearing this voice, the young ladies were startled at first. Then they all turned their heads and looked towards the source of the voice. Noah, who was holding a wooden cup filled with water, was walking over slowly with a puzzled look on his face. Why do all of you look like you've lost a wallet, but don't know if you should go and find it? The three young ladies ignored Noah's ridicule and stared blankly at Noah. Then their eyes lit up. Looks like there's no need to look anymore. Tioni smiled. The best comforter has come knocking on our door. Comforter? Noah was stunned. What and what? Ignoring Noah's shock, the twin Amazon sisters stood up and pushed Noah's back at the same time. They pushed Noah in the direction of AIC, and said so as they pushed. All right, don't worry about that kind of small matter, little brother. Let's go and have a chat with AIC. Chat with AIC? Noah immediately understood. Looking at AIC, who was standing at the entrance of the forest in a daze, Noah smiled helplessly. That girl, is it so easy to take things too hard? With that said, Noah did not resist Tioni's strength, and under the twin sisters' push, he walked towards AIC. Rafia hurriedly followed behind. Bale and Lily had just finished setting up their tents. They looked at each other and quietly followed after them. Not long after, the group all came to AIC's side. AIC seemed to have sensed the movement and turned her head, her gem-like eyes turning to look at the group. Her beautiful eyes sparkled like stars in the night sky, and Rafia and Bale were almost stunned by her beauty. Everyone. AIC looked at the group that came to her in a daze and asked hesitantly, "What's wrong?" "No. Nothing," Rafia hurriedly said. It's just that Mr. Noah seems to have something to say to Miss AIC. AIC blinked and looked at Noah. Under AIC's gaze, Noah was speechless. Do your best? Tioni and Tioni muttered softly behind Noah's back, causing Noah to almost lose his temper. Noah sighed and looked at AIC. Are you still thinking about what happened during the day? Under Noah's gaze, AIC lowered her head and muttered softly like a child who had done something wrong. I'm just thinking about what that power is. Of course, she was not referring to Frey's power, but the mysterious method that allowed Frey's strength to increase greatly. Evidently, after seeing that method, AIC began to subconsciously think about it again. She wondered if she could also increase her strength like that. Actually, I don't really understand. Noah looked straight at AIC. Why are you so obsessed with increasing your strength? AIC fell silent. It wasn't just AIC. Even Tioni, and Rafia fell silent, causing Belle and Lily to be confused. That was what Tiona had said. Actually, I've always had this thought. Tioni seemed to want to say it out loud. AIC, why do you only want to become stronger? Tioni and Rafia looked at AIC, as if they were also curious about this question. It seemed that even among Loki's family, not many knew why AIC was so obsessed with obtaining power. It was possible that no one knew the reason. AIC lowered her head as if she wanted to avoid everyone's gaze. After a while, she lowered her head and said, I just want to become stronger. This reason was as good as not saying anything, because if she really wanted to become stronger, she wouldn't have displayed this level of obsession. There must be some secret in AIC's heart. It was this secret that made this young lady pursue power. Tioni, and Rafia felt extremely complicated when they thought about the secret in AIC's heart that drove her to pursue power that they didn't know about. Noah also fell silent for a while. After a while, he lifted his head and said plainly, Do you know about fairies? When these words came out of Noah's mouth, AIC's expression changed for the first time. Chapter 1993. Fairies. Together with the elves, they were known as the representative magical races of the lower realm. However, compared to the elves, fairies were more legendary. This was because the number of fairies was not only much less than other races, but they had always been a very mysterious and magical race. They were known as the most beloved children of the gods, and also known as the avatars of the gods. If the gods were perfect beings, then the fairies were just below the gods. Therefore, the fairies were known as the race closest to the gods, and their potential far exceeded that of other races. As a magical race, it was natural that fairies were born with the talent to use magic. Even without grace, they could still use magic. However, the fairies were not only proud of their talent in magic. Fairies could often cause miracles. To put it in simpler terms, almost all of the immortals were a race that possessed a mysterious ability to develop. In this world, there were many legends and stories where fairies appeared. Sometimes they would guide the existence of heroes, allowing the heroes to achieve fame. Sometimes they would lend a helping hand to the heroes, helping them to achieve their mission. Sometimes they would provide humans with magic, giving them great power. Sometimes they would give humans powerful weapons, giving them tools to overcome difficulties and defeat evil. In fact, some immortals would even turn their bodies into weapons to accompany the heroes throughout their lives. They would conquer the north and the south, leaving behind an illustrious reputation. In the era when the gods had not yet descended to the lower realm, and when humans were just a poor race, the power of fairies was almost inseparable from the appearance of human heroes, making great contributions. Since the gods descended to the lower realm, the races began to communicate with each other, and obtained the power called God's grace. The miracles caused by the fairies, who were once known as legends, were gradually replaced by ability points. They were originally a very mysterious race, and people's demand for them had decreased. Naturally, the fairies appeared less and less, and their legendary and mysterious nature became more and more. At least, in Eulalie, there were almost no fairies as members of the clan. However, it was not that fairies did not exist in Eulalie. Not to mention the other fairies, the goblins of the fairies often appeared in Eulalie's life. They looked very similar to the old man. Although they did not have great strength, they could make precious metals and gems. They had a pair of skillful hands and had made many famous weapons and props. As for the immortal spirits other than goblins such as fire spirits, water spirits, wind spirits, thunder spirits, light spirits and so on, they had almost become legends and were rarely seen. Therefore, to people, immortals were still a very legendary race. However, for Noah, who had been to the world of the elven messenger's sword dance, fairies were not mysterious existences. This was because the immortal spirits of this world and the elves of that world were very similar in nature. Could be seen from the name. Earth spirit, water spirit, wind spirit, fire spirit, light spirit, thunder spirit, etc. These immortals were just like the elves in the elemental spirit world. They could be said to be the embodiment of the elements. Otherwise, there wouldn't be examples of immortal spirits being able to transform themselves into weapons. Therefore, in this world, beings like Aster and Athena should be called fairies rather than fairies. Under such circumstances, Noah smiled faintly. Actually, I have formed a contract with a fairy. AIC's gem-like eyes immediately widened. Formed a contract with a fairy? Bale and Lily sucked in a breath of cold air. Tiona, Tiony and Leafia exchanged glances with each other. Then Leafia said weakly, the so-called contract is... You should have heard of it, right? Noah shrugged. A mysterious fairy was moved by a hero and decided to help the hero in battle. She transformed herself into a weapon and went through all difficulties for the hero. Isn't this a very common plot in stories? Noah raised one of his hands and stroked the elven mark on the back of his hand. Thus, I made a contract with such an immortal and made her my sword. The initial mark on the back of my hand is the proof of my contract with her. Hearing this, everyone turned to Noah's hand and looked at the elven mark on the back of Noah's hand. So, Leader has a fairy companion as a weapon? Bale looked at Noah with admiration. Indeed, Leader is an amazing hero. Is that so? Noah said indifferently. But, if you know the reason why I formed a contract with Aster with a fairy, then perhaps you won't think so. Everyone was stunned. Noah did not care about the others. Instead, he looked straight at AIC and said something to her surprise. The reason I formed a contract with that fairy is very simple. It's not because I'm a hero, nor is it because she wants to help me. It's because I'm the only one who can withstand her curse. Curse? AIC was completely stunned. That's right, a curse. Noah laughed bitterly. In the past, the fairy that formed a contract with me had a contractor who lent his power to her and helped her save a continent. But because her power was too strong, a weak human had to pay a price if he wanted to use her power. The price was his life. What? Everyone almost exclaimed. However, Noah didn't mind it and continued speaking. And the fairy that formed a contract with me didn't know about this at the beginning. When her contractor lost his life because of her own curse, it was too late for regrets. So, she sealed herself in a sword and swore to never become someone's sword again. Noah said softly. The reason was because she didn't want her power to be used to harm others and cause them to lose their lives. At this moment, everyone present fell silent. Only Lily's expression changed slightly and she spoke anxiously. Then Sir Noah formed a contract with that fairy, doesn't that mean? Don't worry, I'm fine. I just said that I can withstand this curse. My body is born with a special constitution. No matter what kind of curse it is, it has no effect on me. Noah suddenly smiled. That's why I got the sword. Lily heaved a sigh of relief. As for the others, they couldn't help but sigh. This person in front of them really gave them one surprise after another. He had endless tricks up his sleeve. Even the fairy looked at him in a new light and became his weapon. That was a treatment that only legendary heroes had. Looking at the looks of admiration on everyone's faces, Noah shook his head. I'm not telling you this because I want to tell you how amazing I am. Noah turned his gaze back to Ace. I want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with pursuing power, but having too much power may not be a good thing. Ace's eyes flickered fiercely. Not only my lovely contractor, but I'm also touched. Noah said very calmly. After all, I had the same problem when I was young. I had too much power, but I didn't have the ability to control it. As a result, it caused me to go berserk many times and brought a lot of trouble to the people around me. If it wasn't because the person who picked me up was a great expert, I think I would have killed the people around me with my own hands. Everyone didn't know what to say. But Ace noticed a detail in Noah's words. Picked up. Ace said, half surprised and half hesitant. Then you. Yes. Noah said helplessly. I have no parents, so I should be considered an orphan, right? Ace immediately shut her mouth. You're digressing. Noah laughed. Anyway, I want to tell you that maybe you have a reason to pursue power. That's not wrong, but if you're too stubborn, you may not be able to achieve the result you want. Noah enunciated each and every word. What you need to strengthen is your heart, then your power. Don't get the order wrong. Ace fell into deep thought. The surroundings gradually returned to silence. An indescribable atmosphere filled the air and didn't calm down for a long time. Chapter 1994. The next morning. After waking up, Noah, Bale and Lily began to pack their luggage and prepare to return to the clan tribe. The main purpose of coming to the dungeon this time was to help Bale level up. The middle level was originally an area that only LV2 was allowed to explore, and with the record of clearing all the way from the 13th floor to the 17th floor yesterday, Bale, who was only LV1, should have accumulated a considerable amount of experience points, enough to be used to level up to LV2. Therefore, Noah did not intend to continue to delay, and was ready to embark on the return journey early in the morning. Bale and Lily naturally had no objections. Under the organization of Noah, they immediately prepared to return to the clan tribe. To Noah's surprise, Ace and her party seemed to be ready to return to the ground. They had packed their luggage early and even put away their tents. Looking at Ace and her party who were ready and approaching, Noah was puzzled. Didn't you plan to stay and earn money? Money can be earned at any time. Tiona threw such a sentence directly. Compared to earning money, the matter of Ista's clan tribe is more important. Yes. Tiona nodded. Although I don't know what Ista's clan tribe is hiding, the means that can greatly increase their strength is amazing. If all the members of Ista's clan tribe can use that means to greatly increase their strength, it will be terrifying. So, we plan to return directly to the clan tribe. Leafia continued the words of the twin Amazons. If it's the Lord God and the leader, there may be a way to collect information. We have to remind the clan tribe to be careful of Ista. Although Ista's clan tribe and Loki's clan tribe had no deep hatred in Eulalie, the battle between the clans was a normal thing. Known as one of the two most powerful clans of Eulalie, Loki's clan tribe had become famous, but at the same time it had become easy to provoke trouble. A tall tree attracts the wind, and a wide sea raises waves. Only by being careful would they not have big problems. Maybe at some point, Ista's clan tribe would target Loki's clan tribe. Therefore, AIC and the others had already decided last night that they would directly embark on the return journey today. They would return to the clan tribe and discuss today's matter with Loki and Finn. Is that so? Noah pondered for a moment before replying. If that's the case, help me pass a message to Loki and Finn. A message? Both Tiona and Tiny were curious. What is it? Pay attention to a Vulpera girl among Ista's clan. Noah looked around at the girls of Loki's clan. If you have any information about that Vulpera girl, tell me. Vulpera? Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia were slightly stunned. They were extremely puzzled. Fox girl? What does that have to do with this matter? Clearly, these girls didn't notice the Vulpera girl in the metal box. The three girls saw Noah's serious expression and knew that this might be the key, so they silently kept it in mind. AIC was the only one who seemed to be thinking about what Noah said last night. She seemed to be in a daze, and no one knew what she was thinking about. Noah didn't say anything else, and set off on the return journey with his companions and the girls of Loki's clan tribe. When the party came out of the passage and arrived at the main room on the 17th floor, Bale, who had drawn his dagger from his waist, seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He stole a glance at Noah from the corner of his eye, as if he wanted to say something but didn't dare. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If you want to say something, just say it. What are you trying to do by keeping me in suspense? No, I'm not keeping you in suspense. Bale hurriedly shook his head, and then scratched his head in embarrassment. I just wanted to say that since you have a weapon made of immortal essence, leader, why don't you use it here? His words made all the girls' eyes light up, and they all looked at Noah. AIC, who had been thinking about something, also turned her gem-like eyes to Noah. Obviously, everyone was curious about the weapon that was only limited to the legendary immortal spirit. Noah didn't mind letting them see the power of the Demon Slayer and Heavenly Sword. It's a pity that there aren't any suitable opponents. Even if I show you, you won't be able to see its true power. Noah pursed his lips. If that's the case, I might as well not see it. With that, Noah took the lead and walked forward. Although everyone was a little disappointed, they had to admit that on floors above the 18th floor, including the floor master, there wasn't a single opponent that could make Noah use a weapon made of immortal essence. Therefore, everyone could only suppress the curiosity in their hearts and follow Noah forward. On the way back, Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia did the same as yesterday. They didn't make a move and left all the monsters to Noah and the others. Noah once again summoned the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear to increase Bale's strength, allowing Bale to kill his way back to the 13th floor from the 17th floor. He continued to accumulate experience until he returned to the top floor. Only then did he stop and begin his journey. After spending about half a day, the group finally came out of the dungeon and returned to the labyrinth city, Eulalie. Then, little brother, shall we part here? Tyogny waved goodbye to Noah. Don't miss me too much, okay? If you're free, come to our base and have a seat, Tyogny said with a smile. If it's you, I think Loki and Finn will welcome you. I'm sure Lady Riveria wants to talk to Mr. Noah about fairies as well. Leafia bowed politely. You're welcome to be a guest anytime. Got it. Noah smiled. If I'm free, I'll go over and have a seat. After that, Noah looked at AIC. Coincidentally, AIC also raised her head and met Noah's gaze. Under AIC's gaze, Noah smiled helplessly and reached out his hand to pat AIC's head. Don't think too much or you'll get old easily. After saying that, Noah left the central square with the envious Bale and the silent Lily. They walked towards Hastia's base. AIC watched as Noah left. After Noah's figure disappeared into the crowd, she touched her head where Noah's hand still lingered and murmured softly, "That's right, Noah. Every time he touches my head, I feel so happy. Why?" On the other hand, Noah and his group returned to Hastia's base. Lord High God! Bale called out impatiently as he opened the door. I'm going to. Before Bale could finish his sentence, Noah suddenly reached out his hand and stopped him. At almost the same time, Hestia's voice sounded from the other side of the door. That's enough. Say no more. I'll never agree. As soon as Hestia's voice faded, another voice sounded. Goddess Hestia, you have to think about it carefully. The conditions we've offered are already generous enough. However, this sentence seemed to have angered Hestia, causing her voice to sound like it was filled with anger. No matter how good your conditions are, there's no way I'll agree to them. Just go back and tell your Lord God about it. As soon as she finished speaking, the other side of the door fell silent. After a while, a cold laugh sounded. I hope you won't regret it. This was the end of the conversation. After a while, the door was opened, and a neatly dressed youth with a sweet smell walked out. It was as if he often soaked in tenderness. The moment he came out, the young man saw Noah. His pupils shrunk slightly, and he hurriedly lowered his head. Without turning his head back, he quickly left. Who's that person? Lily doesn't know either. Bale and Lily looked at each other, not understanding the situation at all. Noah looked at the youth's departing figure and recalled the conversation just now. His eyes slowly narrowed. Although it was only a few words, Noah had already guessed why the youth had come, and even guessed who he was. Interesting. Chapter 1995. After this brief interlude, Noah, Belle, and Lily entered the house and immediately saw Hestia sitting on the sofa with an angry look on her face. Mistress Hestia? Lily asked in a strange voice. What's wrong? What's with that expression? Only then did Hestia notice Noah and his companions. When she saw Noah, her angry look immediately turned into a pitiful one. Hestia jumped off the sofa and ran all the way to Noah. She hugged him tightly. Ha ha ha, 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 ha ha ha. Belle and Lily were both startled by his bold manner. As for Noah, he felt helpless. How many times have I told you not to hug me? Noah patted Hestia's head. But I won't knock your head today. Hearing this, Hestia raised her head and stared straight at Noah. You know everything? I should say that I guessed it. Noah shrugged, pushed Hestia's petite but plump body away, sat on the sofa, and said in a very indifferent tone, Isn't it just people from other clans coming to poach? Poach? Lily blinked her eyes. Then she came to a realization. Could it be that person just now? That's right. Hestia yelled angrily. That's nothing. What do you mean by as long as you hand that person over to us? Are they selling the children of the clan tribe as commodities? Belle didn't seem to have realized what was going on as he mumbled in a submissive manner. In other words, that person just now was sent by another clan tribe to poach our people? That's right. Lily felt that it was only natural. But it's not strange. With Lord Noah's excellence, even Freya's clan tribe and Loki's clan tribe have always wanted to be part of him. If Orly's two strongest clans are like this, then the rest of the clans will definitely do the same. So, Belle began to understand. Lord Goddess is so angry because the other clans are trying to poach our leader? If it's just poaching, then there's no need to be so angry. After all, with Noah's ability, this kind of thing will happen sooner or later. I'm angry because of their attitude. Hestia's brows furrowed. The members of the clan tribe can be said to be the children of the Lord God. It would be fine if they were just poaching, but they actually said something like, if you give them to us, we can exchange them with 10 high-level members. They are exchanging the children of the clan tribe like goods. This is so infuriating. Wah, there's such a thing? Belle was stunned. That's not strange. In the eyes of most gods, the members of the clan tribe are just tools to ensure their status and wealth. There are only a few overgods who would treat their clan members as real family and love them, right? Lily's tone became heavy. Noah pondered for a moment and suddenly said, That person just now was sent by Isda's clan tribe, right? Hestia was stunned and exclaimed in surprise. How did you know? Noah didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the street outside the door as if he was looking in the direction that the poacher had left. I haven't even gone to them and they've already come. Belle and Lily also furrowed their brows, looking thoughtful. Hestia asked uncertainly when she saw the reaction of the 3 clan members. Could it be that something happened between you and Isda's clan tribe? You can say that. Noah nodded, but he didn't explain. Instead he said so. I'll tell you about it later. Now let's talk about Belle's level up. Belle? Level up? Hestia seemed to be unable to put the two words together and couldn't react for a while. Belle's eyes lit up and he looked at Hestia with a hopeful expression. Is this clan tribe and level up again? I'm really starting to wonder what kind of ridiculous things you've done in the dungeon. Hestia glared at Noah, Belle, and Lily with hatred in her eyes. Remember to tell me everything later. Don't hide anything. Yes. Noah, Belle, and Lily responded helplessly. On the sofa in the living room, Belle was half naked and sitting cross-legged. The ability value on his back was emitting a faint light that slightly illuminated the surroundings. Hestia, who was sitting behind Belle, looked at the new ability value in front of her, and the corners of her mouth twitched. After a while, Hestia silently recorded the new ability value onto a piece of parchment paper. Then she silently placed the parchment paper on the table, attracting the attention of the three people present. Belle Crone LV1 Power, B737, S, 937 Durability, C677, S, 925 Dexterity, B749, S, 967 Agility, A817, S, 999 Magic Power, C611, S, 911 Magic Flame Lightning, Quick Attack Magic, Skills, Hero's Wish, Active Action, have accumulated power. All ability level S? Lily widened her cute eyes, and her mouth formed an O shape. No level up? Belle, on the other hand, lowered his head in disappointment, looking very dejected. Noah furrowed his brows and looked at Hestia, who had remained silent. What's wrong? Is Belle's EXP not enough to level up? It's enough, Hestia said grumpily. Not only is it enough, but there's still some left. I'm just extracting the remaining EXP to increase Belle's ability value. This is the most beneficial for Belle. After hearing Hestia's words, Noah and Lily understood. Except for Belle, who didn't know much about leveling up, both of them were confused. Although as long as one's ability value reached D stage, it didn't mean that the faster one leveled up, the better it would be. After all, after gaining enough achievements and leveling up, the basic ability value of the previous level would be reduced to 0. However, those basic abilities wouldn't disappear directly. Instead, they would be kept as hidden abilities. The higher the basic ability value before leveling up, the stronger the strength after leveling up. For example, when an adventurer was at LV1, his strength was at level A, his strength was set at 10, and he could get an increase of 50 by leveling up. Then, when the adventurer leveled up to LV2, his strength would be 10 plus 50, and the total would be 60. When an adventurer was at LV1, his all ability value was S stage and his strength was set at 20. The increase from leveling up was also 50. Then, when the adventurer leveled up to LV2, his strength would be 20 plus 50. The total would be 70. Of course, if the two were to be compared, there would definitely be a gap. Therefore, the extra EXP would be extracted first to help Belle increase his all-ability value to S stage, and then help him level up. That way, the benefits would undoubtedly be more. There wouldn't be a second adventurer in the world who could keep his all-ability value S stage as a hidden ability. Of course, with the exception of Noah, who had surpassed the limit and retained the SSS stage of the all-around value at every level as a hidden ability. In other words, I can still level up? Hearing Lily's explanation, Belle was full of hope again. However, Hestia was not in the mood to pay attention to Belle. She kept staring at Noah, like a child who was kept in the dark. Although she didn't feel wronged, she still felt aggrieved. Being stared at by Hestia like that, Noah felt a little uneasy and said, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Why are you looking at me like that? Hestia didn't answer. She just continued to stare at Noah. After a long while, she finally opened her mouth. After a while, she said, Remember to tell me clearly what you did to Belle. For now, we need to level up Belle first. Okay. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that this goddess wouldn't let him go so easily. Chapter 1996. In fact, the reason why Hestia didn't immediately help Belle to level up was not only because it was more beneficial, but also because she needed to discuss with the person involved about how to choose the development ability. After leveling up to LV2, Belle could also begin to have the ability to develop. Just like Noah back then, Bale had accumulated enough EXP and had several options to develop his abilities. In such a case, Hestia naturally had to discuss with the person involved first and let Bale pick out the development ability he liked. Because of this, Hestia didn't immediately help Bale to level up, but temporarily delayed it. Finally, after some discussion, Bale's development ability was chosen. Luck. That was Bale's final choice. To tell the truth, even Hestia didn't know what effect this development ability had. The reason was very simple. Hestia had never heard of such a development ability before. In other words, this was a newly discovered development ability. In terms of rarity, it was probably higher than Mystery, which was regarded as a treasure by everyone. However, the effect of this development ability could only be determined after Bale, who was the first to have this development ability, explored it himself. Hestia just gave a guess. Perhaps the effect of this development ability called Luck is similar to Noah's skill. Shelter from the world. That was the skill that Noah had when he still had the ability value. The effect of this skill was very simple, which was to infinitely increase Noah's luck. Bale's luck might be the same as Shelter from the World, which was a development ability related to luck. However, Bale's luck certainly couldn't be compared with Shelter from the World at present. After all, Bale's luck was only at the lowest level I stage. Even if it could increase his luck, it would be quite limited. After deciding on the development ability, Bale finally officially leveled up and became a LV2 adventurer. This wasn't just a difference in level, but also the difference between a high-level adventurer and a low-level adventurer. After leveling up to LV2, it meant that Bale finally got rid of his identity as a rookie and stood out from more than half of the LV1 adventurers, becoming a high-level adventurer. In this way, Bale not only obtained the qualifications to enter the middle class, but also the qualifications to obtain a title. In the future, he could walk on the streets with his head held high. After leveling up, Hestia began to interrogate Noah about what he had done with Bale, and how he had gotten involved with Ista's clan. After knowing the whole story, Hestia looked at Noah as if she was looking at a freak and fell into deep thought. The reason why he looked at Noah like he was a freak was naturally because of the existence of the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. As for contemplation, it was a mysterious method to increase the power of Ista's minions. When Noah asked Hestia if there was a Vulpra girl in Ista's clan, Hestia's answer was as follows. Never heard of it. Yes, never heard of it. That was why even Hestia didn't know who the fox girl was. While Hestia was deep in thought, Noah suddenly opened his mouth and said something that made Hestia explode with rage. I want to go to Happy Street. At the same time, in the base camp of Loki's clan, a group of high-level adventurers gathered in the lounge. Ace, Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia told everyone what happened in the underground city, making everyone look at each other. Ista, that slut really hid something, Loki said in an extremely unhappy tone. Last time, I heard that several spawn tribes jointly sued Ista's spawn tribe, saying that they gave false information about their spawn tribe, only to be bitten by them in the end. I knew that this matter was definitely not that simple. This Ista's clan is really good at hiding. No, it should be said that they are very good at deceiving people. Finn stroked his chin and said, exposing the levels of all the members of the guild, but hiding a mysterious method of leveling up that can overturn the level gap. If all the members of Ista's clan can really level up using this method, then it doesn't matter whether or not there is any hidden ability value information. Yes. Riveria's expression was extremely serious. Even if all the information about ability value is exposed, it doesn't matter. After all, they can increase their power when they want to. Even if the ability value before it is increased is exposed, there is no harm in it. In fact, it can deceive the enemy. But it shouldn't be to the point where they can increase their power whenever they want, right? Gareth expressed his opinion. To be honest, even if a method to increase one's ability value to the point where it can overturn the level difference exists, I don't think it is something that can be used casually. There must be some restrictions, right? Bert pursed his lips with a look of disdain. If they really think that other people's ability value is so easy to steal, then Ista's clan wouldn't have been hiding it all this time. They would have used it against Freya's clan long ago. Everyone nodded one after another. With Ista's enmity towards Freya, if that mysterious method really had no restrictions, Then that beauty would have attacked Freya's clan long ago instead of waiting until now. The reason why she didn't do so was definitely because that method had some restrictions. Even a godly tool like the Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear, although it could increase the user's strength almost infinitely, had a time limit. It was impossible to maintain the boosted strength forever. Moreover, the strength of the user also determined the number of times the boosted strength could be increased. It was not true that the boosted strength could be increased infinitely. Therefore, the mysterious method that Ista's clan used to increase the power of their members must have some restrictions to some extent. By the way, Loki, little brother also asked me to pass a message to you. Tiona suddenly raised her hand. He asked me to tell you to pay attention to a Vulpera girl in Ista's clan. A Vulpera girl? Loki was slightly startled, his pair of eyes flashing with some light. Could it be that the mysterious method that Ista's clan uses to increase the power of their members is related to that Vulpera girl? Since it's that person's words, then it's highly credible. Finn nodded thoughtfully, then looked at Riveria and Gareth. No matter what, since Noah mentioned it, then we might as well collect some information in this area. I think so too. Riveria nodded. That person definitely wouldn't speak without thinking. A Vulpera girl in Ista's clan, right? Gareth was even more direct. I'll instruct my subordinates to collect information. The countermeasure against Ista's clan was established here. Leafia hurriedly poured tea into the teacups in front of everyone, bringing the meeting to an end. While the others were drinking tea, Tiona inadvertently looked in A's direction. As A's had always been taciturn, everyone didn't notice A's behavior. They saw A's, who was sitting at the side, staring blankly out of the window. This wasn't anything strange. Usually when A's had nothing to do, she would also be in a daze like this. But this time Tiona saw a trace of confusion in A's eyes. Tyogni spoke almost instinctively. A's? What's wrong? That one sentence made everyone stop what they were doing and look at AIC one after another. Riveria, in particular, seemed to be able to see through AIC's heart and directly said this sentence. Is there something on your mind? Riveria. A shifted her gaze to Riveria, hesitated for a moment and said so. I feel like I'm a little strange. You feel like you're a little strange. Everyone was stunned. What kind of feeling is that? Tiona was puzzled. Do you still feel that way? Yes. Compared to her usual tone, AIC's tone had started to fluctuate a little. I don't know why, but whenever I think of someone, I have a very strange feeling. As soon as A's words fell, the entire lounge fell into a dead silence. Chapter 1997. At this moment, the upper echelons of the Loki clan were all silent. They looked at each other, and the expressions on their faces were indescribable. It was very interesting. Looking at her companions, AIC's eyes couldn't help but blink, and she spoke weakly with some confusion. What's wrong with you guys? Hearing this, everyone's expression was still somewhat indescribable. Especially Loki, Rafia, and Bert, even their faces were stiff. Only Tiona and Tiny seemed to have encountered something interesting, and their faces were full of excitement. However, before Tiona and Tiny could speak, Riveria spoke first. Although it's a little strange for me to say it, Riveria looked at AIC's confused expression, sighed softly, and asked, AIC, can you describe it more specifically? More specifically. AIC's expression became even more confused. This really made things difficult for AIC. It should be known that this girl was not good at words and deeds, and it was difficult for her to express anything on her face. She was usually silent like a cold little princess, so she was called concubine by others, and received the titles Sword Concubine and Warrior Concubine. There was really nothing more difficult than asking AIC to describe it more specifically with words. Riveria naturally understood AIC very well, and she rubbed her eyebrows and looked at AIC. Well, I know it's a little difficult for you to describe it more specifically, but in that case we will ask you some questions and you just need to answer us truthfully. AIC secretly sighed in relief, and gently nodded her chin, indicating that she agreed. Thus, the upper echelons of the Loki clan fell into silence again, and looked at AIC as if there were sparks in their eyes, which made AIC a little timid. The first to speak was Riveria. What kind of person do you think that person is? AIC pondered for a moment, and after a while said concisely, "A very powerful and very mysterious person." The second to speak was Gareth. "What kind of person do you think that person is to you?" AIC was startled, then lowered her head, as if she was asking her own heart, and said this sentence. "He's very good to me." The third one to speak was Tiona, who raised her arm high. "Compared to us, who do you think is more important, us or that person?" A trace of awkwardness appeared on AIC's pretty face, as if she really didn't know how to answer. "I don't know." The fourth to speak was Tyogni. "Do you think it's worth being happy if you can be with that person all day long?" AIC's mind involuntarily began to imagine such a scene. Unknowingly, her emotionless face began to relax as she answered almost instinctively, "I think I'll be very happy." The fifth to speak was Rufaya. If that person invited Miss AIC to join his clan, would Miss AIC agree?" AIC hesitated for a moment before replying with a somewhat determined tone. "I won't agree." "Then let me ask you a question too." Finn looked at AIC as if he wanted to conclude. "AIC, haven't you realized that that person already holds a very high position in your heart?" AIC was stunned on the spot. "Not only does he treat you well, but compared to us who are with you all day long, you said you don't know which side is more important. This means that he's at least on the same level as us in your heart, right?" Finn smiled bitterly. "And yet, you wish to be with him all the time. You might even hesitate when he tries to persuade you to join another clan. Furthermore, he has the power, prowess, and mystery that you look forward to. Is there a need to explain how much such a person holds in your heart?" AIC was at a loss. Looking at AIC's reaction, even the stiff Loki sighed and his expression became a little serious. "Then let me ask you a question too." AIC raised her head and looked at Loki. "Hey AIC," Loki said very seriously. "That person is Noah, right?" AIC held her breath as if the biggest secret in her heart had been exposed. She was at a loss of what to do. Under such circumstances, Bert seemed to have been provoked by something. He glared at AIC and finally said the most crucial sentence. "I say, don't tell me you like that kid." "Like?" AIC was stunned. This word seemed to have some kind of unimaginable magical power. As soon as it entered AIC's heart, it was like a huge rock that stirred up waves and caused her heartbeat to accelerate rapidly. AIC unconsciously held her chest and listened to her accelerated heartbeat. She didn't know if it was because she couldn't believe it or because she didn't want to admit it. "I like him." At this moment, the emotions that filled AIC's heart were like an expanding airflow that made her feel a little uncomfortable. However, AIC didn't feel any pain towards this uncomfortable feeling. Instead, she felt all kinds of emotions surging. Sour, sweet, bitter, spicy. Complicated emotions filled AIC's heart and made her feel like she didn't recognize herself anymore. Looking at AIC's dazed expression, everyone seemed to have understood what was going on and exchanged looks with each other. Miss AIC really likes Mr. Noah. Leafia was a little disappointed, as though the person she yearned for was snatched away by someone else. "I knew it. There's definitely something going on between AIC and little big brother. I didn't expect AIC to have reached this age. Life is really unpredictable." Tiona and Tiona were excited while the other lamented. "It actually developed to this extent?" Riveria felt a little helpless. "This is really interesting. When exactly did it become like this?" Gareth seemed to be interested. Only Finn's expression was filled with helplessness and seriousness. He glanced at Rocky and spread his hands apart. A cadre of a clan tribe falling in love with a member of another clan tribe. "That's really something that isn't funny," Finn said to Rocky. "It all depends on how the Overlord sees this matter." "What else can he see?" Rocky glared at Finn and said with gritted teeth. "Even if it's that little guy, he won't be able to snatch away my most beloved AIC unless..." "Unless?" Finn raised his brows and asked. "Unless what?" "Unless that little fellow is willing to consider leaving that shorty's clan." Loki's eyes turned slightly. "If he can join my clan tribe, then I'll consider it." "Is that so?" Finn looked at Loki meaningfully and smiled. "Seems like you value that man a lot too. After all, if it was Rocky in the past, anyone who dared to have designs on AIC wouldn't even think about it. But now, Rocky said that he would consider it, which was enough to show how much he valued Noah. Unfortunately, that little guy won't be able to come to our clan tribe. Rocky pursed his lips and said with either jealousy or envy, I can see that my conditions are the same as that shorty's. To that little guy, whether our clan tribe is good or not doesn't matter at all because we can't give him what he wants. Indeed. Finn couldn't help but sigh. He has too many miraculous methods that we don't have, and he doesn't care for what we do have. There's nothing more depressing than this. So what's the situation now? Reveria interjected. You're not going to interfere with AIC's relationship? I'm not going to interfere. Finn's face showed an innocent smile that matched his appearance. After all, I quite admire that man who even made AIC's heart flutter. As long as that little guy stays with that poor shorty, I won't agree. Rocky snorted coldly. Don't think I'll compromise so easily. The other girls began to surround AIC and chatter non-stop, but they didn't attract AIC's attention. That was because AIC was still there and didn't react for a long time. Chapter 1998. When people were focused on something, time always passed very quickly. Not long after, the curtain of night fell on Eulalia. Eulalia was once again a city lit up by magic stone lamps. The unique hustle and bustle of the labyrinth city reappeared. Noah's figure slowly appeared at the corner of the southeast street of Eulalia. Noah looked at the street illuminated by peach-colored lights. It was filled with scantily clad prostitutes and men who came to seek pleasure. He touched the money pouch in his arms and couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps I'm the only one who can apply for funding from the clan tribe when coming to Happy Street to have fun. During the day, when Noah said that he wanted to visit Pleasure Street, Hestia went berserk as expected. Unfortunately, the young goddess rampage came and went quickly. To be more precise, it should be said that they were suppressed very quickly. Noah didn't give Hestia a chance to go berserk as he directly knocked her on the head. After that, he calmly told Hestia that he just wanted to explore the situation and see if he could find any clues. Noah was quite curious about the mysterious method that the Vulpera girl used to increase her power. Moreover, after what happened in the dungeon, Noah felt that he had to make a trip here. After all, apart from being curious about the Vulpera girl, Noah was also curious about another matter. After explaining the whole situation to Hestia, although she didn't go berserk again, she still couldn't agree to it. As a virgin goddess, how could I agree to let my child wander around? It wasn't unreasonable for Hestia to make such a ruckus. However, there was something wrong with what Hestia said later. What if you suddenly become interested in that kind of place? Wouldn't Ista get her way? I definitely won't agree to it. In the end, in order to prove himself, Noah forcefully suppressed Hestia and even brazenly took out the 280,000 Varus that Belle and Lily earned in one day. Gathering information about other clans is considered a clan activity. It's not too much to ask for funds, right? Noah took out the money under Belle's admiring gaze and Lily's twitching expression. 280,000 Varus. That should be enough, right? If Mira and Lisanna find out. At that thought, the smile on Noah's face gradually disappeared. He felt a little guilty. I'm not really here to flirt, so Mira and Lisanna should forgive me, right? Noah muttered to himself. Then, he laughed bitterly and patted his cheeks. Then he lifted his feet and walked into the hall. On the spacious street filled with prostitutes of all kinds of clothing, almost all the men were seduced into the surrounding buildings and began to squander. Not only was the atmosphere of Pleasure Street very different from other streets, even the style of the buildings was quite different. In this place there were open-style Japanese houses, as well as stone mansions full of a heavy feeling. The architectural style seemed to encompass the entire world, occupied by brothels, showing a different exotic style. Walking on such a street with the laughter of women beside him, it was an atmosphere that could make any man unconsciously let go of their worries and immerse themselves in it. Noah didn't immerse himself in it. He just strolled along the street. In the end, it was the people around him who were surprised when they saw Noah. Isn't that the tyrant? He actually came to Pleasure Street? Under such discussions, the people around him showed all kinds of reactions. As expected, even if he's a tyrant, he's still a man. That's right. The men's faces showed a smile full of intimacy. I didn't expect that the tyrant would like to come here. If we go over now and take him to play around Pleasure Street as seniors, Then maybe there's a way to get the tyrant to join our clan. One by one, the male gods who came to look for women began to have their own ideas. That's the tyrant? Very good. I like this kind of strong and handsome man. On the other hand, the prostitutes were like wolf dogs that had their eyes on meat buns. Their gazes on Noah were so scorching that they could burn one's skin. Under such circumstances, one by one, people with ulterior motives began to approach Noah. However, at this moment, Noah stopped in his tracks, lifted his head, and curled the corners of his lips into an imperceptible arc. Soon after, Noah slowly lifted his leg and stomped on the ground below his feet. Dong! Following a thunder-like explosion, a terrible impact fell heavily on the ground, causing the ground to suddenly shake. With Noah's foot as the center, the ground suddenly exploded. Cracks suddenly spread out, raising waves of broken stones and debris. In the blink of an eye, it became densely packed like a spider web. Whoa! Whoa! What? Amidst the exclamations, the people around couldn't help but start to sway under the tremors of the ground. They almost fell directly to the ground. When the commotion subsided, everyone stared dumbfoundedly at Noah, who had stomped on the ground. For a long time no one reacted. The whole place suddenly became quiet. Looking at the stunned men and women, Noah curled his lips and smiled. He took out a heavy money bag from his arms and threw it on the ground. The pouch full of gold coins fell to the ground, and the crisp sound echoed throughout the silent streets and alleys. Then Noah finally opened his mouth. I'm not interested in those ordinary women. If you want to satisfy me, at least give me a woman with some strength. Don't let me have my fill, and you'll be the first to collapse. As Noah declared, he looked around and pointed at the money bag on the ground. Whoever can satisfy my request and let me buy her for a night, this money will all be hers. With one sentence, the surrounding atmosphere completely changed. Damn! So domineering. This is the first time I've seen someone who came to have fun be so handsome to this extent. It's really unreasonable. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to become his fan. The men and the Prince Charming all shouted. As for the women who were prostitutes, their eyes almost flashed with love. As expected of the rumored tyrant. It's too wild. I like this kind of man. For the prostitutes, a man who was wild and generous was undoubtedly the best prey. Therefore, the surrounding prostitutes looked at Noah with eyes that were about to burn with fire. That was called scorching. After a while, one of the prostitutes seemed to be unable to hold back and stepped forward in front of Noah. Then let me see if the rumored tyrant really has the ability to make us collapse before we've had our fill. The prostitute who was shouting like this did not even report her name, because the battle lasted for less than a second. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, the scantily clad prostitute was sent flying. After rolling on the ground a few times, she immediately stopped moving. All right. Noah acted as if he did not see anything and said faintly. Next. The men and the Prince Charming all looked at the unconscious prostitute and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. On the other hand, the prostitutes widened their eyes and looked at Noah with even more fervent gazes. He's really strong. He's so barbaric. I really want to know what he's going to do in bed. Unfortunately, we don't have the chance. Yeah. The prostitutes were excited and helpless as they discussed. However, if we can satisfy Tyrant and become a regular here, maybe we can have a taste in the future. That's right. We can't let him go. We must make him stay and satisfy him. Quick! Go and get those battle prostitutes from Ista's family to come here. The group of prostitutes fell into a commotion. Some stayed to watch Noah, and some went to the deepest part of Happy Street to inform the battle prostitutes from Ista's family. Seeing this scene, the corner of Noah's mouth rose again. The show had just begun. Chapter 1999. At the same time, on the open-air balcony on the top floor of the base camp of Ista's clan tribe, Ista, who was lying on the bench, listened to the young man's report. She raised her hand and took a puff of smoke from a pipe. As expected, she began to mutter to herself. Sure enough, he refused. But it makes sense. He's such an excellent child. Even the strongest clan has to treat him like a treasure. How could a lowly clan like Hestia's clan let go of him so easily? Then, Mistress Ista, what should we do? The young man asked in a respectful tone. Should we launch an attack on Hestia's clan? Launch an attack on Hestia's clan. Ista looked at the young man with a faint smile. Instead of answering the question, she asked another question. In other words, do you have a chance of winning against Tyrant? I don't. The young man was a little speechless. But no matter what, the opponent is only one person. If we use all of our clan and that, it should be easy to take down an adventurer, right? Hearing this, the beautiful goddess just stood there silently smoking and exhaling smoke, causing the surrounding air to become a little heavy. The young man didn't know what his overgod was thinking. He could only lower his head and couldn't say a word. Under such circumstances, time passed bit by bit at an unbearably slow rate. At this moment, Ista noticed something strange. Mistress Ista? The young man asked in a strange tone. What's wrong? Don't you feel it? Ista slightly raised her eyebrows and said slowly. It seems like there's a commotion. A commotion? The young man finally noticed something strange. Looking at the happy street in the distance through the balcony, a different kind of noise and clamor seemed to be going on. Looking at this scene, Ista's beautiful brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Finally, she couldn't ignore it anymore. She stood up and walked out of the balcony. She even walked out of her luxurious and vast room. Following the wide corridor that looked like the interior of a chalk castle, Ista walked into her palace. Then she walked down the stairs at the end of the corridor and went all the way down to the hall on the first floor. This was a hall that looked like a ballroom. The first thing they saw when they entered was an extremely luxuriously decorated hall. There was a flight of stairs on the left and right sides of the palace. They followed the walls and extended upwards, forming a corridor right in front of the entrance of the palace. In the cloister, Esta walked out with her entourage. She came to the front of the railing and looked down at the hall. At this time in the hall, a group of provocatively dressed Amazons were making a ruckus. Aisha, who was the leader, stood to the side as if she was in deep thought. Looking at the noise below, Ista raised the pipe in her hand and knocked on the railing. The crisp sound of dang dang echoed throughout the hall. At this moment, all the noisy Amazons below seemed to have been strangled, and their voices stopped abruptly. The noisy scene instantly returned to silence. All the Amazons, including Aisha, raised their heads and looked at the corridor above. Under the gaze of all the prostitutes present, Ista asked straightforwardly, "Why is it so noisy?" The group of prostitutes suddenly looked at each other, and then their eyes gathered on Aisha. Aisha also raised her eyes, looked at Ista above, and explained the situation. "I heard that the tyrant seemed to have come to Happy Street and claimed that he wanted to buy a woman with some strength for a night. To satisfy his desire, he set up an arena in the middle of Happy Street." Tyrant? Ista's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up, and then she laughed. "I didn't expect that child to come to me." The group of battle whores immediately started to clamor again. Even if it's the rumored tyrant, he is still a man. As a man, it's impossible for him not to come to Happy Street to find pleasure, right? I just don't know what the rumored tyrant tastes like. You still want to taste it? It's not even your turn. All of a sudden, the group of prostitutes became like shrews in the market, chattering non-stop. "It's just like what you saw, Mistress Ista." Aisha shrugged. "The sisters here are planning to take a bite of the tyrant. That's why it's so noisy. It is indeed a fat piece of meat." Ista smiled sweetly and then said this. "If that's the case, I'll go and see." What? The prostitutes suddenly became more noisy. "Mistress Ista also plans to go?" "It's over, it's really not our turn now. Mistress Ista is so annoying. She always picks the best one every time and doesn't give us a chance." "That's right." Thus the whores grumbled. However, Ista no longer paid attention to the prostitutes, but with a soul-stirring smile, her eyes were filled with joy. "Let me see with my own eyes what's so special about the man that Freya likes. If he managed to get the man who rejected Freya, how wonderful would that beauty's expression be?" When she thought of this, Ista couldn't hold it in anymore. She took her entourage and walked down the stairs. Then, together with the group of combat prostitutes, they marched toward the center of Happy Street. Aisha, who was at the back, lowered her head and thought about something. Her eyes flashed slightly. At the same time, on the top floor of Babel in a luxurious suite, In front of the wall-like glass window, Freya crossed her slender arms and looked in the direction of Happy Street. Her pair of beautiful eyes slowly narrowed. I didn't expect that child to go there directly. In Freya's eyes, in the direction of Happy Street, the brilliance of the soul was shining like the sun, telling the beauty what the man that occupied her heart was doing. Last time you were so intimate with the swordswoman, and this time you went directly to Happy Street. Why do you always look at other women and never look at me? The goddess of beauty and love spat out heartbroken words. Her pitiful tone was enough to arouse any man's desire to protect her. However, the goddess's face had a mesmerizing smile from beginning to end. With one hand on the glass window, she looked at the place where the brilliance of the soul was, and her eyes gradually became infatuated. Immediately, Freya whispered softly, "However, it's time for our game to begin. Let me see your handsome side, my most beloved man." Bang! In the center of the bustling Happy Street, a heart-wrenching muffled sound once again resounded under the night sky. Under that muffled sound, an unknown number of prostitutes flew out like a cannonball and rolled on the ground. Finally, they were stacked together with a large group of prostitutes, their heads tilted, and they were completely motionless. "It's done," Noah said in a formulaic manner. "Next." The surrounding men and women looked at the pile of prostitutes, and then looked at Noah, who was standing in the center of the spiderweb-like cracks on the ground. One by one they all shrunk their necks. "How many are there already? There are 20 of them, right? More than that? I'm afraid there are more than 30? What a pity he couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. As expected of the adventurer with the name Tyrant, he's so violent." The surrounding crowd seemed to treat this game as a festival, and they were all engaged in heated discussions. Especially the male idols who wanted to see the world in chaos. They spread the news, and more people began to gather here. Over time, Happy Street really became like a festival, and it became more and more lively. At this moment, a person shouted, "Look, Esta's clan is here." Chapter 2000. In fact, Noah had already noticed the arrival of Ista's family members before the surrounding people noticed them. Immediately, Noah's gaze turned towards the direction of Ista's family members. Looking at the enchanting goddess who was surrounded by a group of battle whores, an imperceptible light flashed through his dark and deep eyes. As for the rest of the people, they all stopped making noise, making the whole place that was as lively as a festival a second ago completely silent. Because everyone present, whether male or female, whether human or god at this moment, had lost the ability to speak. Their expressions and eyes were replaced by dullness. And these people who had fallen into dullness only had one woman in their eyes. That was Ista, who was surrounded by a group of battle whores. Undoubtedly, she didn't have a powerful aura, but her whole body exuded an indescribable charm. Undoubtedly, she didn't have any strange power, but she captured everyone's heart as if it was a matter of course. What the battle whores were supporting wasn't a woman, but beauty itself. The goddess of beauty moved her feet gracefully and charmingly. Under the protection of a group of combat prostitutes, she passed through the crowd and arrived in front of Noah. An indescribable silence pervaded the surroundings. Everyone looked at the goddess in a daze, falling into an intoxication that they couldn't extricate themselves from. However, the goddess didn't look at anyone around her at all. Her eyes were fixed on Noah's body, and a smile slowly spread out on her exquisite and exotic face. When that smile appeared on her face, an unusual sweet fragrance began to spread in the air. Everyone present couldn't help but let out a numb sound, as if they had seen the most incredible miracle in the world. They were completely captivated by the goddess' smile, and their skin began to redden and heat up. Including the battle whores who were supporting Ista, they all had the same reaction. And everyone's eyes were surprisingly similar. Obsession, intoxication, absent-mindedness, love. In front of the goddess, whether human or god, everyone's mind was taken away. It was as if the goddess was the only one left in the world, and all the fragile souls were attracted to her. As a result, none of the hundreds or thousands of people and gods present made a sound at this moment. They were all immersed in the beauty, and were unable to extricate themselves. Except for one person. Gazing at the smiling goddess like a seductive rose, Noah acted as though he didn't see anything and calmly said, "Are you the next one?" There was no intoxication. There was no infatuation. He was not absent-minded. There was no love. In fact, they didn't even pay attention to him. It was as if Noah was facing an extremely ordinary challenger. With the most casual tone, he spoke these words that seemed extremely abrupt in the deathly silent scene. In a split second, the beautiful smile on Ista's face froze. In the surroundings, the men and women whose minds had been captured also abruptly regained their senses. It was as if they had just had a good dream, and their faces were filled with reminiscence and bewilderment. The people and gods who knew all the details reacted almost instantly. What had just happened? Charm. Just now, Ista had used the ability of seduction that only the beauty goddess had. She had taken away everyone's mind in an instant. Only one person ignored Ista's charm. That was Noah. After Freya, the charm of the second goddess of beauty was also completely ignored by Noah. Understanding the reason, those who knew the details looked at Noah with a different gaze. Especially Ista, the beautiful smile on her face was faintly replaced by embarrassment, which made the ambiguous atmosphere a second ago become weird. In this regard, Noah just cast a playful look at Ista, and his tone was like sneering at a naughty child's prank. He spread out his hands. By the way, the goddess of beauty is really the same. One or two of you used the so-called charm on a man you met for the first time. Without that, don't you have the confidence to attract a man's heart? Hearing this, Ista finally could not maintain her smile. The news that Noah was not charmed by Freya, and even rejected the goddess of beauty's courtship had already spread throughout Eulalia. Therefore, Ista naturally knew about this matter. However, Ista still used her charm on Noah. The reason was very simple. That bitch can't charm that man, but I can. Doesn't that prove that I'm prettier than her? If this was the case, no one would say that Ista was inferior to Freya in the future. With this thought in mind, Ista impulsively used her charm. However, it turned out that there was no difference between Ista and Freya as goddess of beauty. At least, the charm that could capture the hearts of all living beings was not worth mentioning to Noah. I'm here today to have fun, not to see you show off. Noah glanced at Ista, his tone without a trace of respect for the goddess. If you want to challenge me, I'll welcome you at any time. But if you want to subdue me with a smile, I'm sorry, you're still lacking a lot of experience. His ruthless words made Ista's expression turn ugly, and at the same time, it also made the surrounding people speechless. This tyrant, last time he mercilessly rejected Goddess Freya's courtship, is he going to mercilessly drive away Goddess Ista this time? Those are two goddesses of beauty. How can he do such a thing? Is he really a tyrant with a heart of stone? If that's the case, he wouldn't have come to Happy Street to have fun, idiot. That's true. The surrounding discussions fell into Ista's ears, and it was more irritating than anything else. It was only at this moment that Ista was a little angry. He actually rejected me? As a goddess in charge of beauty, Ista had never experienced the feeling of being rejected by others. Now Ista finally had a taste of this feeling. However, unlike Freya, who was also rejected, Ista's heart was only filled with anger. Perhaps this was the reason why there was a difference between Freya and Ista, even though they were both goddesses of beauty. Under the influence of such emotions, Ista's beautiful face, which was as beautiful as a goddess, put on a fake smile and said, I've always heard that there's a child in Hestia's clan who's amazing. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, it really doesn't disappoint. It's a pity that there's no respect for a goddess. That's punishable. It seems that Hestia didn't teach you how to be a proper person. Goddess, you must be joking. My lord always teaches me that if someone is good to me, then I have to be good to them 100 or 1,000 times better. If someone is bad to me, then I don't have to be polite and just knock them down. Noah curled his lips into a smile. Besides, goddess, are you sure you're not disappointed? Why do I feel like you're very upset? Ista's face twitched. She really didn't expect that the man in front of her would be so merciless. His words were full of sarcasm. What's more, the other party was a man who Ista could manipulate as she pleased in the past. Now, being ridiculed by a man who could manipulate as she pleased in the past, Ista's feelings were really complicated. She felt like she was experiencing all kinds of emotions. Just as Ista was about to lose her temper, a loud toad-like laughter rang out. Croak, 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 croak. Even Mistress Ista was rejected. Sure enough, this old lady is the most beautiful one. Accompanied by this strange loud laughter, a huge body stepped with powerful footsteps that caused the ground to involuntarily tremble as it walked over. When the full appearance of the giant figure was exposed to everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and their faces immediately turned green. It was none other than Freeney. Chapter 2001. Gua 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 gua. Amidst that ear-piercing and unpleasant laughter, the Toad Girl separated the crowd and walked in amidst a series of thumping sounds. No, it wasn't right to say that they were separating the crowd. To be more precise, it should be said that the crowd automatically dispersed as if they had seen a ferocious beast. They fled in panic, and in the blink of an eye, they all fled into the surrounding brothels, hiding completely. It was an expression that others would avoid, but Freeney did not see it at all. This Toad Girl's eyesight was that bad. Therefore, Freeney ignored the disdainful gazes of the battle whores from Ista's spawn. However, after the interlude with Freeney, the anger in Ista's heart couldn't help but subside a lot. Although she didn't have the same disdain as the other battle whores, there was a strong sense of impatience in her eyes. What are you doing here, Freeney? Isn't that obvious? Lady Esta? Freeney grinned. Didn't they say that there are good men here? Of course I have to come. Really? Ista sneered. Then do you know who that man is? I didn't listen carefully, but those guys all said that he was a good man. Since he's a good man, then I'm going to be a part of it, Freeney said casually. Furthermore, I heard that good man even set up an arena, saying that he wanted to find a strong woman to satisfy him. Could it be that there's someone more powerful than me here? As the only LV5 member of Ista's clan, Freeney's words were rather convincing. Moreover, even if she wasn't a LV5, looking at her huge body that was more than 2 meters tall, no one would think that Freeney wouldn't be able to satisfy a man. Instead, it was more likely that she would squeeze him dry. So far, countless men had been sucked dry by Freeney. If there was really a man who couldn't get satisfaction from a woman, then he would look for Freeney. The roles would definitely be reversed. But it was a pity that no man would take the initiative to find Freeney. Unless there was a second Toadman in this world. No, even if he did, he wouldn't be interested in Freeney, right? In the past, if a man had set up an arena in Pleasure Street and said that he would buy a night with the other party if he was satisfied, he would definitely be dragged into the room by Freeney. But this time, Freeney was destined to stumble. Open your eyes. Ista took a puff of the cigarette and said expressionlessly, take a good look at who that man is first. Freeney pursed her lips and shifted her gaze to Noah in a non-committal manner. Then, Freeney's enormous face stiffened, and his toad-like eyes bulged out of their sockets. It's you? It's me. Noah narrowed his eyes and smiled. What? You want to get involved too? I won't show you any mercy. You. Why are you here? Freeney exclaimed. Her exclamation was like a roar, causing the surrounding air to tremble. Aren't you not interested in women? This time it was Noah's mouth that twitched. This self-righteous girl still didn't realize that he was being led by the nose by Aisha's hints. This girl was the leader of Ista's family. Her looks could even scare away ghosts, but she was a toad-like woman on the outside and a pig on the inside. She was so stupid. However, luring this girl out was also part of Noah's plan. Then Noah said straightforwardly, okay, let's not talk about nonsense. Who wants to challenge me? As he said this, Noah extended his foot and picked up the heavy purse on the ground. He took it in his hand and let the pleasant sound of gold coins colliding with each other resound in the surroundings. If I can't find a woman on Pleasure Street that I'm satisfied with, then I'm afraid I'll be disappointed in this place. With that one sentence, the challenge that was originally like entertainment was directly linked to the problem of face. You. Ista frowned and looked straight at Noah. You're not deliberately looking for trouble with our family tribe, are you? Where did this come from? Noah blinked innocently. I said I'm just here to have fun. Since you're here to have fun, then there's no need to set up an arena, right? Ista seemed to want to see through Noah's heart and stared at him. If one woman can't satisfy you, then 2, 3, 4, or even 10 or 20 women will do. Don't you men like this? Oh. Noah raised his eyebrows and smiled. In other words, Ms. Ista thinks any woman can spend a night with me, right? Ista was suddenly speechless. Indeed, men were a species with a strong desire to conquer. Being able to have sex with multiple women was probably something every man wanted to do. However, men were also creatures with strong self-esteem. Some men would think a woman who had been touched by others many times was dirty. Some men were only interested in certain women. It was hard to say whether it was a fetish or a clean freak. Perhaps the man in front of her only wanted to be with a strong woman? However, Ista still thought Noah was deliberately looking for trouble with her family tribe. After all, Ista was a goddess. Whether the children of the lower realm were lying or not, as a goddess who had lived for God knows how many years and seen how many people, it couldn't be hidden at all. Therefore, Ista could see that Noah wasn't really here to flirt. This man was definitely here to cause trouble for Ista's family tribe. But why was that? Did Ista's family tribe offend Hestia's family tribe? Could it be that the members that were sent to poach him during the day made him unhappy? With that in mind, Ista couldn't help but blurt out, "If you're really here to have fun, then this arena has no meaning to exist at all, right?" "Oh," Noah replied without changing his expression. "Why do you say that?" "Because everyone knows that in Eulalie, or even in the whole world, there is no one who can beat you in a one-on-one battle," Ista said. "Even Eulalie's ultimate weapon, the only LV-7, can't do anything to you. Who can beat you?" After Ista said that, everyone also reacted. It seemed that this was indeed the case. Undoubtedly, he knew that no one could beat him, but he still deliberately set up an arena. This was simply a challenge. Just as this thought appeared in everyone's mind, Noah smiled again. "I didn't say that only by beating me can you get my favor," Noah shrugged. "How about this? I'll stand here and don't move. As long as someone can make me move, then it's considered my loss. And I'll only use one hand. Whoever can make me use the other hand, then it's also considered my loss. Of course, if someone can injure me, then it's even better. Is this okay?" As soon as this came out, everyone was stunned. Stand still? Using only one hand? If it was another occasion, others would definitely think that Noah was arrogant and conceited, simply arrogant to the extreme. However, in this place, Noah came to have fun, not to win but to lose. If that was the case, it was reasonable to set up these conditions. This time, even Ista started to doubt herself. Was this man really here to have fun and not to challenge her? While Ista was still lost in her thoughts, Franny had already called out impatiently, "All right. Then let this old lady do it," Franny said as she looked at Noah with eyes full of greed. It was obvious that this idiot thought that she would definitely win under these conditions, and could taste the rumored tyrant. In response, Noah smiled as if he was not surprised. "I don't care." Ista stared at Noah's face, trying to see something from it. "Mistress Ista." Franny was a little impatient. Ista could only curse him in her heart. Then she waved her hand to show that she agreed. Seeing this, Noah raised the corner of his mouth. Chapter 2002. Boom! With a resounding thud, Franny took a heavy step forward. Her eyes were bloodshot, and the corners of her mouth were cracked so wide that they almost reached her ears. Combined with her toad-like face, she gave off a very terrifying feeling. However, in the surrounding brothels, people and gods still poked their heads out from the doors, windows, and various cracks. Their eyes were full of curiosity. It was not only the people present. Unknowingly, the surrounding buildings were almost full of people and gods. Although Friuli's disgusting appearance and narcissistic attitude were not complimentary, in terms of excitement, the confrontation in front of them was indeed worth watching. On one side was the tyrant. On the other side was the man-killer. On the other side was an existence that could even be compared to level 7. On the other side was a genuine level 5 battle whore. If it was under equal conditions, then certainly no one would think that the former would lose to the latter. After all, Noah was the only level 7 existence who had fought against Eulalie in public. He was also the strongest person who annihilated Apollo's clan alone. If it was only level 5 against such a person, it was not worth watching at all. However, in the case of Noah making a huge concession, it was a different story. Anyway, it's good to be able to fight well. This was the most loyal thought of those gods and adventurers who wanted to see the world in chaos. However, under such circumstances, it did not take long for many people to curse. Too despicable. Yes, too despicable. Not only did Noah make a promise that even if he lost, He would only use one hand in the battle. But what about Noah's opponent? This person was taking a huge battle axe from the hands of the two battle whore next to him. The battle axe model was almost the same as Friuli's body, nearly 2 meters in length. The blade was extremely wide, and the blade was unusually sharp. At a glance, it could be seen that it was an absolute masterpiece. Even if it was not a level 1 weapon used by level 1 adventurers, it was at least a level 2 weapon. In the face of such a weapon of mass destruction, one could neither dodge nor use both hands to fight. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the advantages and disadvantages. And if he were to fight with his bare hands, it would be equivalent to courting death. They've already made such a huge concession. Yet they're still using such a weapon? Isn't this too damaging to the reputation of a LV5 level 1 adventurer? That's right. Many gods began to feel indignant, but even more of them were gloating over the misfortune of others. Ista, who knew what kind of conduct those gods had, naturally didn't care. At the same time, she didn't express any dissatisfaction with Friulini carrying such a huge battle axe. She only looked at Noah, smiled sweetly, and pretended to be kind. You don't seem to be carrying any weapons. Is that okay? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Noah glanced at Freeney, who was carrying a huge battle axe. He was not frightened by the opponent's exaggerated size and weapon, and was still as relaxed as ever. Besides, no one would carry a weapon while having fun, right? That's true. Ista's face was full of smiles. In that case, do you need me to prepare a weapon for you? No need. Noah suddenly smiled. Anyway, it's just a game. It won't take too much time. The implication was that even if he made such a big concession, didn't have a weapon, and the opponent was a LV5 level 1 adventurer, for Noah it was still just a game. Tyrant is tyrant. His tone is really arrogant. Ista's heart began to become ruthless. In that case, Freeney, you don't have to be merciful. Don't let him down. Of course, I won't let go of any opportunity. Freeney stared closely at Noah, stuck out her big tongue, licked the corner of her mouth, and looked as if she was drooling, which disgusted the people around, including Noah. He had also reached the limit of his patience with this disgusting toad girl. Although the development so far had been within Noah's calculations, and Freeney's appearance could also be said to be Noah's plan, but when faced with this stupid, ignorant, and disgusting toad girl, Noah would be lying if he said that he didn't feel disgusted. Of course, that was not because Noah judged people by their appearance. Even if he didn't look at this toad girl's appearance, no one would like her. After all, there were many people who were squeezed into jerky by this man-killer, directly becoming a cripple and even losing their precious lives. It was not wrong to look ugly, but it was definitely wrong to have an ugly heart. Therefore, Noah said with a calm face, "Hey, let's start quickly. I don't want to see your orc face anymore." Orc? Freeney was slightly startled and frowned. When did I become an orc? I'm an Amazon battle whore. Is that so? Noah smiled, his expression revealing a trace of sarcasm. Then I'm sorry, I recognized you wrongly. I thought there was a new type of toad man among the orcs. Toad? Toad man? Freeney's expression froze. The people in the surroundings were taken aback. Then they burst into laughter, including the battle whores of Ista's clan. Ha 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 ha. Well said. Looking closely, it really does look like one. That's right. How can a battle whore look like that? I also think there must be a new type of orc. Toad. Toadman. I can't take it anymore. I'm laughing so hard that my stomach hurts. At this moment, even Ista couldn't help but curl the corners of her mouth, finding it funny. The laughter that came from all directions caused Freeney's face to twitch. In the end, she let out an angry roar. What are you laughing at? The surrounding laughter came to an abrupt end. And yet, Freeney had actually said such words. Not only are you all jealous of my beauty, but you're also ganging up to ostracize me? I won't be so easily fooled. Freeney coldly snorted and stared at Noah with a murderous look in her eyes. And you don't think that I'll be moved by your words? Others might be afraid of a tyrant like you, but I'm not. Let's see how you'll win against me in this situation. Freeney immediately let out a tiger-like roar, tightly gripping the large battle axe in her hand. Her entire body erupted with an incomparably powerful aura, causing the surrounding air to stagnate. Gua 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 gua. Freeney laughed out loud as she stomped on the ground. With a heavy thud, her gigantic body transformed into a deadly cannonball as she violently charged towards Noah, who was almost within reach of her. He closed the distance in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! In the next moment, Freeney suddenly raised the battle axe in her hand. When she was only half a foot away from Noah, the battle axe in her hand abruptly swung downwards, carrying with it a sharp enough energy to pierce the skin of a person. It viciously chopped down towards Noah's head. The moment the wind blew, Noah's robes fluttered from the force of the battle axe under the huge battle axe, undulating up and down. The blade of the battle axe flickered with a cold light, telling everyone that the battle axe was not a toy, but a genuine high-grade weapon. On one side was a gigantic Amazon wielding a battle axe. On the other side was a bare-handed human who could not dodge or use both hands. No matter what, in the eyes of an outsider, the situation before them could be said to be very different. However, the one who was at a disadvantage was not the human youth whose robes fluttered under the battle axe, but the Amazon who was roaring and swinging down with the battle axe. Looking at the gigantic battle axe chopping down, Noah only raised one hand unhurriedly. Clang! Accompanied by a bell-like sound, a circle of strong wind with Noah and Freeney as the center suddenly vibrated and swept across the entire field. The strong wind blew the surrounding crowd to the point that they could not help but close their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, everyone in the crowd suddenly widened their eyes, their faces full of disbelief. Chapter 2003. No way, right? At this moment, all the onlookers were dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold in the center of the field. Not to mention the onlookers, even the people of Ista's clan were caught in shock and couldn't react for a while. Especially Frane herself, she was completely stunned. From her body shape, one could tell what Frane was good at. Among the 5 basic abilities of strength, durability, dexterity, agility, and magic, Frane was best at strength, followed by durability. Although Frane's strength hadn't reached the highest level of S stage, but a LV5 adventurer with a high strength, coupled with a full blow of a LV1 weapon, could easily crush solid rock and solid steel. As a result, such a blow was easily neutralized by Noah. With a single finger, Noah, by just raising a finger, blocked Frane's full blow of the battle axe. That scene made everyone in the audience fall into a state of amazement, and then one by one, they all trembled. That guy's durability is actually high to such an extent? Obviously, everyone in the audience attributed this incredible scene to Noah's durability, above normal. But they didn't know that the reason why Noah could directly block that huge battle axe with his body wasn't because of the durability basic ability, but because of Noah himself. There was only one reason why he could so easily block that huge battle axe's blow. That was the existence of the 3rd perpetual motion machine's soul, eternal enhancement. Unlike before when he used enhancement magic, now Noah's enhancement was comprehensive from the inside out. In the past, when Noah used enhancement magic, it was applied to the arm to enhance the arm strength, and applied to the legs to enhance the leg strength. The enhancement aspects were separated. After all, the effect of enhancement magic was originally to specialize the existence of the target. If the target was a light bulb, then it was to enhance the brightness. If the target was a fan, then it was to enhance the wind. If the target was a rock, then it would strengthen the hardness. If the target was a sword, then it would be a sharpness enhancement. Therefore, when Noah used strengthening magic, he almost always used it on his hands and feet to strengthen his arms and legs. Sometimes he would also cast it on his eyes to increase his vision. Other than that, he rarely used it on other places. After applying the enhancement spell to his body using a fixed magic array, the target of the enhancement spell was no longer just his limbs and facial features, but Noah's entire body. His arm strength had increased. His leg strength had increased. His 5 senses were enhanced. Even his internal organs and lungs had been strengthened. It was a complete and comprehensive strengthening. Of course, the hardness and toughness of Noah's bones, flesh, and skin had also been strengthened. Once Noah entered combat mode, his entire body tensed up. Even sharp weapons would find it difficult to leave a single wound on his body. Even though the battle axe in Frane's hand was not a normal weapon, but a Tier 1 weapon used by Level 1 adventurers, its sharpness and hardness were comparable to the Moonworld's noble phantasm. However, without a tear be noble phantasm, it would still be difficult to leave a single wound on Noah's body. Of course, Noah wouldn't explain all this to the onlookers for no reason. Noah only looked at Frane's dumbstruck toad-like face and sighed in disappointment. Is that all? Is that all? A level 1 adventurer who was unreachable in the eyes of others received such an evaluation from Noah. Open! Open! Frane's face was distorted. What kind of joke is this? With a furious roar, Franey seemed to have gone berserk. Her short toad-like arms tightly gripped the enormous battle axe as she swung it at Noah like a storm. Clang 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 clang. Following a series of crisp sounds, Frane's wild swings were all easily blocked by Noah. He still used a single finger. Noah was like an elegant conductor of music. He raised his hand and raised his finger. With a speed so fast that only afterimages could be seen, he continuously raised his arm and used that single finger to block Frane's storm-like attacks one by one. The collision between the huge battle axe and the frail finger was like a collision between steel and steel. The sound of metal clashing could be heard incessantly. Seeing Frane frantically swinging her battle axe, Noah leisurely blocked her attacks one by one. At the same time, he seemed to be deliberately provoking his opponent and spoke as if nothing had happened. I say, why didn't you use the LV 6 strength that you displayed in the dungeon? There's no benefit in going easy on me. While saying this, Noah suddenly raised his hand and flicked the blade of the battle axe that was slashing towards him. Clang clang. The battle axe that came crashing down like an avalanche was suddenly deflected by a flick of his finger. It actually caused a burst of sparks that scattered in all directions. Frane only felt a terrifying force violently jolt her back. She was forced to retreat several steps in the midst of a series of footsteps. Bah! Bastard! Frane was unable to restrain her anger. I don't believe it. With a furious roar, Frane once again pressed forward. Her entire body was like a meteorite as she charged forward with the momentum of a rampaging war chariot. In response, Noah only watched with narrowed eyes. His body remained motionless as he gently raised his hand and raised his finger. Whoosh! The storm-like slash came crashing down like a waterfall. Clang! The axe strike, which was powerful enough to shatter a human body, was deflected by the firm fingers as usual, causing a crisp sound to ring out. Huff 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 huff. The battle axes were like a meat grinder, swinging crazily from all directions. Clang 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 clang. The axe could easily shatter rocks, but in return it was always the same sound of collision. Every time they collided, intense sparks would erupt from the point of collision. Every time he attacked or defended, the air around him would be slightly disrupted, and a strong wind would be stirred up. One side had given up on all defenses and attacked continuously as if they had gone mad. At the same time, he focused on blocking the incoming attacks and continuously flicked away the incoming battle axes with single-minded focus. Coupled with the difference in size and weapons, it looked like a battle between a giant monster and a tiny ant. However, the battle was progressing without any suspense for the latter. The onlookers who had gradually recovered from their astonishment burst into extremely enthusiastic cheers one by one. The unexpected scene made all the people and gods seem to be ignited and completely excited. Seeing that Noah was in the storm of slashes that could almost kill a person hundreds of times, but he never took a step back. With the power of one finger, he deflected the storm-like axe strikes one by one. Everyone was cheering for him generously. Only the battle whores of Ista's clan were all panicking. No way! Did he really fight against a LV5 level 1 adventurer with just one finger? That tyrant is actually this strong. Not to mention the battle whores, even Aisha, who had been silent and thinking about something, was stunned. Only Ista clenched her teeth. That kid is really looking for trouble. If it went on like this by this time tomorrow, all the people in Eulalia would know that a LV5 head of Eulalia's family couldn't even deal with one finger of the enemy. At that time, Noah's name would undoubtedly resound, but Ista's clan would only become Noah's stepping stone. If that really happened, how would she be made fun of by the jealous goddess? I will never allow that kind of thing. Ista took a deep breath and calmly said to Aisha, Aisha, get ready immediately. Aisha almost immediately understood Ista's plan. She didn't say anything and just silently retreated. About a minute later, a burst of light particles suddenly appeared in the air. Seeing this, Noah was not surprised but happy. Finally. Chapter 2004. Wang. When the air suddenly trembled and a burst of light particles abruptly appeared on the scene, the surrounding crowd who were cheering enthusiastically were all stunned. Noah, on the other hand, showed a serious expression for the first time since the start of the match. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that the light particles that had suddenly appeared were gradually condensing into a vortex of light that resembled a magic array. The whirlpool of light looked like a hammer without a handle. It hovered high above Freeney's head, shining with resplendent radiance. At this moment, Noah fully unfolded his sensing ability, enveloping the surrounding area. Then Noah clearly felt it. In an Eastern-style brothel nearby, a wave of faint fluctuations gradually spread out. Is it there? While Noah stared closely at the Eastern-style building, the luminous mallet suspended above Franny's head suddenly descended and struck Franny's body. In the next moment, the light particles on the hammer transformed into a torrent, enveloping Franny's entire body. Roar, roar, roar! Franny let out a furious roar, and his aura suddenly swelled, creating a powerful gale that attacked the surroundings like a shockwave. Seeing Freeney's sudden outburst, the surrounding onlookers were all shocked. There's still a godly twist in this situation? I like this development. Could it be that the Toad Girl is going to show her might next? Then the tyrant will meet his tragic end here? Do you have to do this? In the crowd of onlookers, a group of Prince Charming with advanced thinking became excited and shouted loudly in a language that no one could understand. This old lady has obtained this power again. If you have the guts, try and take this old lady's attack with your finger again. Only at this moment did Freeney burst forth with a strength comparable to that of a LV6. The aura swept across the surroundings like a gale, causing the sand and dust on the ground to be swept up and blown in all directions. Unfortunately, Freeney did not know whether it was LV5 or LV6. In the eyes of others there might be a big difference, but in Noah's eyes there was not much difference. The reason why Noah hadn't dealt with Franny so cleanly was because he hadn't achieved his goal. Now Friolini was of no use. Did no one tell you? Noah's gaze landed on Freeney as if he was looking at something dirty. A cold light finally appeared in his eyes. You're too noisy. Suddenly, a complex and mysterious magic array appeared before Noah. Dense mana gathered within the magic array, and it radiated a dazzling light. The light gathered at the center of the magic array and transformed into a dazzling beam of light. It shot through the air in a flash, heading straight for Franny. Franny didn't even have time to react before the dazzling beam of light shot towards her and landed heavily in front of her. Dong! With a muffled explosion, the ground that was directly hit shattered into pieces. The astonishing impact set off by the explosion turned into a strong wind that shook Franny's body. Franny suddenly let out a scream, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard from her body. Then she was blown away by the strong wind, like a ball that was sent flying, and heavily crashed into the wall of a building. Bang! The sound of an explosion rang out. The frail wall was unable to disperse the energy from Frey's body, and it collapsed with a loud bang, shattering into pieces of rubble and burying Fry within. The whole scene suddenly went silent. Witnessing this scene with their own eyes, everyone's mouth formed an O shape, including those male idols who thought that there was a divine turn of events. All of them opened their eyes wide as if they had been stuffed with durian. As for the battle prostitutes of Ista's clan, they were all stunned. Pa! Ista's hand involuntarily clenched, and the expensive pipe was directly crushed. Looking at Franny, who was buried in a pile of rubble and completely motionless, Ista's heart instantly lost its warmth as if a basin of cold water had been poured over it. No one knew better than Ista what the scene in front of her represented. Others only thought that Noah easily defeated a LV5 level 1 adventurer, but Ista knew that after the upgrade, Franny's strength was equivalent to a LV6 existence. Such an existence, the strongest battle prostitute of Ista's clan, was actually defeated by Noah with just a wave of his hand? This child, who was reputed to be comparable to Eulalie's LV7, was actually able to defeat the strongest commander of Ista's clan with just one blow? Did that mean that the LV7 Otto of Freya's clan could also do the same thing? Ista didn't dare to imagine. If that was the case, Then how could Ista's clan fight against Freya's clan? Ista, who originally thought that she could rely on that to annihilate Freya's clan, had her delusion extinguished, and her beautiful face began to distort. You! Ista's eyes began to show hatred as she looked at Noah. I'm sorry, Mistress Ista. I was a little too heavy-handed. Noah looked at Ista's somewhat hateful eyes, as if he had seen through her thoughts, and smiled meaningfully. However, this will also allow you to have a clearer understanding of your own capabilities. Don't think that you can control the fate of others at will just because you're a god. It's better if you don't let your subordinates poach people from other people's camps with threats and promises in the future. After saying that, Noah ignored Ista's ugly appearance, but it didn't affect her beauty at all. He reached into his arms, took out the heavy money bag, tossed it and pretended to sigh. It seems that I won't be satisfied tonight. Well, even if I'm not satisfied, I can't come here in vain. This time I'll make do with it. After saying that, Noah didn't even look at the battle horse of Ista's clan. He turned his head and walked towards one of the directions of Happy Street. The surrounding onlookers gave a warm applause, and while sending off Noah, they were also engaged in a heated discussion. What a tyrant! So domineering and strong that he didn't even give face to the goddess of beauty. If he wasn't very strong, this guy would definitely die a horrible death. Unfortunately, his strength is extraordinary. That's why he became handsome. Yeah, what a good show. The gods who liked entertainment began to leave with satisfaction. Together with the surrounding onlookers, they gradually began to disperse. The battle whores left behind by Ista's clan looked at the trembling Ista and hurriedly lowered their heads. They were afraid that they would be the target of their lord god's anger. Damn it! Ista was furious. A mere human. A mere member of a low-level clan. A mere man. Ah! Ista, who had never been treated like this by a man, was really furious. At the same time, for Ista, who had always believed that she was the most beautiful goddess and had always firmly grasped the heart of every man, it became an uncontrollable knot that directly penetrated her heart. While Ista was furious, Aisha looked at the direction Noah left. Her eyes flashed slightly, and she whispered in a low voice, "It's actually that direction? Is it a coincidence? Or..." At the same time, Noah came in front of a brothel. Looking at the Eastern-style buildings, Noah narrowed his eyes slightly. Is this the place? He had searched high and low for it. The reason why Noah made such a big commotion was to find this place without anyone noticing. If he secretly inquired, it would attract the attention of Ista's clan. After all, a person who had never been to Pleasure Street secretly inquired about information everywhere. As the clan member who was in charge of the entire Pleasure Street, Ista would definitely notice it and be vigilant. For this reason, Noah put on a show. He made Ista think that he was here to look for prostitutes and secretly to challenge the brothel, but in fact he was here to find the big show. Chapter 2005. In front of God, people in the lower realm could not lie. In this world, such a sentence was simply like a standard, and it was known by all the people in the lower realms. Everyone knew that in front of God, who had existed for a long time, their lives were too short. With such a short life, even if they wanted to cover it up, they would not be able to succeed in front of God. After all, in their long existence, what had God not seen? A mere lie would be seen through without much effort. Therefore, God's ability to see through a person's lie was like the charm of the beauties. It was ingrained into God's instinct and almost became an ability. Therefore, Noah could not guarantee that he could lie in front of Ista without being seen through. Once Ista appeared in front of him, even if he told this beautiful goddess that he was here for pleasure, wouldn't he be seen through in an instant? At that time, Ista would naturally begin to suspect Noah's intentions. Understanding this point, Noah simply beat her at her own game. On the surface, Noah still told Ista that he was here to look for prostitutes. However, Noah's actions made it seem like he was deliberately looking for trouble. He deliberately came to the Pleasure Street to cause trouble for Ista's family. In this way, even if Ista saw through Noah's lie, she would subconsciously think that Noah was here to cause trouble. Little did she know that Noah was also not here to cause trouble, but to inquire about the secrets of Ista's family. With the excuse of setting up the arena, Noah used it to disturb Ista and stimulate Ista's family so that Ista's family would use the mysterious method of promotion that they used in the underground city. However, in public, Ista's family would definitely not dare to put the Vulpra girl back into the iron box and push her to the scene. That would definitely arouse the suspicions of many gods present. Therefore, Ista's family could only use that method in secret. At that time, Noah could rely on his superb sensing ability to find the Vulpra girl's location. Ista, who did not know about Noah's ability, would definitely think that he did not know about the Vulpra girl's existence. Therefore, Noah could openly use the excuse of seeking pleasure to find the Vulpra girl. Everything is going according to plan. Although Ista is a god, her jealousy is too strong and her weakness is too obvious. If she wants to compete with others in a battle of wits and courage, once her weakness is grasped, she is basically finished. No wonder Freya has been suppressing her. It's not without reason. Noah looked at the Eastern-style buildings in front of him, and could not help but feel a trace of anticipation in his heart. "All right, young master, I'm here for pleasure." After saying that, Noah stepped into the brothel in front of him. As soon as Noah entered the brothel, an old woman came up to him and warmly entertained him. Perhaps because Noah had caused a stir in Pleasure Street, the old woman seemed to know that the man in front of her was not only powerful, but also extravagant and had a large sum of money to squander. Her enthusiasm was almost unbearable. Noah didn't want to get entangled with the other party and said this directly. "Introduce me to your top prostitute." That day, in the 18th floor of the underground city, although Noah had only taken a few hurried glances at the Vulpra girl, he vaguely remembered that she was definitely not bad-looking. With that kind of appearance, it would be unreasonable if she was not the top prostitute in such a brothel. Therefore, Noah said that to make people feel that he was a real brothel patron and not looking for someone with a purpose. As expected, the old woman did not suspect anything and nodded repeatedly. She personally led the way and brought Noah to a room similar to a meditation room. There was an incense burner in the room, filling the air with a refreshing aroma. In the depths of the room there was a partition. After leading Noah in, the old lady left silently with a smile on her face. Noah was the only one left at the scene. There was also the girl who spoke to Noah from behind the partition. "Welcome, Your Excellency." She had long golden hair that reached her waist. She had fox-like ears and a tail. She was wearing a red kimono. She was around 17 or 18 years old. He had only seen her once, but she looked quite familiar. He had only seen her once, but she looked quite familiar. He had only sensed her once, but he could not forget her aura. Without a doubt, this prostitute was the Vulpra girl who had appeared in the 18th floor of the underground city. The Vulpra girl sat on the ground in front of Noah and bowed respectfully to him with the most dignified etiquette. "My name is Chuanji. Sir, you can call me Chuanji. Please take care of me." She behaved like a noble's daughter. She behaved like a dignified young lady. The Vulpra girl who called herself Chunji looked at Noah just like that, asking so gently with a pure and moving smile that didn't seem like a whore. "Sir, do you want to go to bed now? Or do you want Chuanji to drink with you first? Chuanji can have the servants prepare delicacies and fine wine. Sir, please tell me what to do." Noah didn't say anything when he heard that. Instead, he slowly walked over to the Vulpra girl who was sitting on the ground. The Vulpra girl called Chuanji instinctively looked up and met Noah's gaze. Looking at this beautiful Vulpra girl, many things flashed through Noah's mind. Within the beastman race there were many types of beastmen. For example, werewolves, cat people, canine people, pigmen, and so on. These races that possessed some of the characteristics of wild beasts, in addition to having physiques comparable to wild beasts, also had innate advantages corresponding to their own race. For example, canine people were born with a sensitive sense of smell, which was no different from true canine beasts. Even if they were extremely far away, they could still smell people and find them. Compared to the humans who were born without any physical advantages and only had outstanding intelligence, the orcs were undoubtedly stronger in all aspects. If there were two races that did not receive any favors, one being humans and the other being orcs, the former would generally not be able to defeat the latter. Among this group of orcs, the Vulpra race was the most unique existence. This was because the Vulpra was the only magical race among the orcs. In other words, the Vulpra were born with the talent to learn and use magic, just like the elves. However, the magic used by the Vulpra was very different from the magic used by the elves, who were at the top of the magical races. Perhaps it was a little unclear, but to put it bluntly, the power that the Vulpera could use should be called demonic arts, which were just classified as magic. The magic that was collectively called demonic arts was also a very rare type of magic. In terms of power alone, perhaps it could not compare to orthodox magic, but almost all of them had unique effects. It was precisely because of this that Noah had reason to believe. This Vulpera girl had joined Izda's family and received Izda's favor, which allowed her to discover an extremely rare demonic art. It was this demonic art that allowed this girl named Chun-Ji to obtain magic or skills that could greatly increase one's power, which became the trump card of Izda's family. At this thought, Noah's gaze toward the Vulpera girl turned thought-provoking. Sir. However, Chun-Ji seemed to be unable to endure Noah's undisguised direct gaze. She lowered her head and spoke in a submissive manner. She lowered her head and asked, "Did Chun-Ji do anything wrong to make you unhappy?" Noah still did not reply. Instead, he extended his hand and pinched the Vulpera girl's chin, raising her face to look at him. Their gazes met once again. Staring at those deep pitch-black eyes that carried a thought-provoking meaning, Chun-Ji's beautiful face actually turned slightly red, as though she felt embarrassed. She did not look like a daring prostitute at all. Under such circumstances, Noah said frivolously, "Don't you know who I am?" "Sir, you must be an incredible figure," Chun-Ji said in a fearful manner. "Chun-Ji has never been allowed to move freely, so it's inevitable that I'm a little ignorant. If I've offended you in any way, please forgive me." Noah nodded in understanding. Chapter 2006. Now, in the whole of Eulalia, it was really difficult to find a person who didn't know Noah. It could almost be described as impossible. After all, back then, the war game between Noah and Apollo's spawn had been broadcasted live in Eulalia. Everyone and the gods had seen with their own eyes how domineeringly Noah destroyed all of Apollo's spawn, including the city. In the end, he even defeated the leader of Apollo's spawn with his own hands. It was so clean and efficient that it was frightening. Coupled with the incident where Freya's courtship was rejected, Noah's name had spread throughout Eulalia, and it was really difficult to find someone who didn't know him. However, this Vulpera girl named Chun-Ji was one of them. The reason was that Chun-Ji was not allowed to move freely by Izda's spawn. Presumably, Chun-Ji didn't watch the war game between Noah and Apollo's spawn due to the issue of freedom. This wasn't modern society, where every house had a TV to watch the live broadcast. If one wanted to watch the war game between Noah and Apollo's spawn, they could only watch it in places like the guild headquarters, taverns, or the spawn's base camp. Only there would the gods use the only divine power that they were allowed to use to conduct a live broadcast, showing the entire process of the war game in front of everyone. Chun-Ji, who was not allowed to move freely, naturally couldn't go to those public places. Even if she knew about Noah's deeds, she wouldn't recognize his face. Understanding this, Noah didn't feel that it was a pity, nor did he find it strange. Noah had more or less guessed that this Vulpera girl's freedom was restricted. A guild member who had magic or skills that could greatly increase one's power and become the trump card of the entire spawn was too precious. No one would feel at ease letting her move freely and give others a chance to poach her away. Moreover, Noah could sense that this Vulpera girl wasn't very powerful, leaving such a precious but weak fighting force to wander outside. Who knew when it would encounter an accident and die? That would be too much of a pity. For that, it wasn't strange that the spawn restricted Chun-Ji's freedom. Noah was just curious. He was curious as to what Chun-Ji's method of increasing the strength of others was. With that thought in mind, Noah also glanced at Chun-Ji's back. Chun-Ji's ability value was there. If only he could take a look. Thinking of this, Noah hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still wanted to see for himself. There will be plenty of time to taste the delicacies and fine wine later. As if he was toying with the girl's delicate and cute face, Noah used his finger to stroke Chun-Ji's chin while speaking with the same frivolous attitude as before. But before that, how about you take off your clothes first? Take off my clothes? Chun-Ji's pretty face was stunned as she spoke with extreme uncertainty. Here? That's right, it's here. Noah smiled. What? Do you have a problem? No. Nothing. Chun-Ji lowered her head. The tail behind her back seemed to indicate the nervousness in her master's heart as it trembled slightly. Since Sir has instructed, then Chun-Ji can only obey. As she said that, Chunji's cheeks were dyed pink. She moved her arms slightly, and a corner of the loose kimono slipped down, revealing her slender and smooth shoulders. Just like this, Chunji's seductive movements could be called undressing, slowly taking off her clothes. The fair skin was imprinted in Noah's eyes, causing Noah to rub his nose and laugh bitterly in his heart. If it were someone else, Noah would definitely not be so straightforward and rude. However, since the target was a prostitute, there shouldn't be any problem with this level, right? Besides, Noah wasn't the kind of person who was anxious for sex, and he didn't have any evil thoughts in his heart. Moreover, it wasn't like he hadn't seen Alien's body before, so why would he feel guilty? With this thought in mind, coupled with the fact that Noah was pretending to be a prostitute, instead of probing, it was better to be more direct so as not to arouse suspicion. Of course, Noah felt that even so, he most likely wouldn't be able to do as he wished. Then Chunji's kimono slipped down from her delicate body, revealing most of her skin, including her plump upper body, in front of Noah's eyes. At this time, Chunji's face was already extremely red. Looking at Chunji like this, Noah felt a little strange. This girl called Chunji is a little too shy, right? That's right. She was too shy. Undressing in front of others as a woman, even if she was a prostitute, she would still be shy when she felt shy. Noah could understand this point. However, looking at Chunji's flushed face, it was no longer just a case of shyness. Rather than being shy, it was more like being ashamed. A prostitute actually had such a strong sense of shame, as if it was her first time. It can't be really her first time, right? In this way, Noah felt a little uneasy. If the other party was a very experienced prostitute, then it would be fine. However, if it was really her first time, then it would be a big problem. Looking at Chunji's blushing face, but still holding back her shame and slowly taking off her clothes, Noah couldn't help it. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't help but pounce on her, but that he couldn't help but shout for her to stop. Alright, it's fine here. It's fine here. Chunji couldn't help but be stunned. At this time, although Chunji's entire upper body was exposed, her kimono had just slid down to her waist. That was fine. He could do it like this? Chunji was confused. While Chunji was confused, Noah glanced at her back at lightning speed. Chunji's back was smooth and white, with distinct lines that could clearly make people see a different kind of charm. However, being smooth and white also meant that there was nothing on it, including the ability value that Noah wanted to see. Seeing this scene, Noah thought to himself as expected. Among the adventurers, there were actually quite a few people who wore clothes that exposed their entire back. For example, the more open Amazon girls like Tiona and Tiona, their entire back could almost be said to be visible at a glance. In this way, could it be that Tiona and Tiona's ability value could be seen by anyone? Of course not. In fact, at the same time that the ability value was engraved, the gods would also use the divine blood as a guide to add a lock for the person who received the favor. The so-called lock was to hide the ability value, and it couldn't be seen at all. In order to not expose the most important ability value information, the gods developed this method to add a lock to the ability value of the children within the clan. Hasti didn't help Noah to lock his ability value at the beginning because she didn't know about this. Noah was Hastia's first clan member, and Hasti had just descended to the lower realm not long ago, so it could be said that she was a newcomer. Gods who had just descended to the lower realm often didn't know about this kind of locking method. Therefore, Hasti didn't help Noah to lock his ability value. When Noah was camping with the girls of Loki's clan on the 18th floor of the underground city, he inadvertently saw that Ace, Tiona, and Tiona all had their backs exposed, but there was no ability value on them. Out of curiosity, he asked, and as a result, he learned about this matter. And of course, Ista's clan, which belonged to the top clan in Eulalia, naturally knew about the lock. Chunji's ability value was also locked. Fortunately, in this regard, Noah also prepared a corresponding method. The next step was to use that method. Just as Noah was immersed in such thoughts, a pair of slender jade hands suddenly wrapped around his neck and pulled him to the ground. However, Noah didn't hit the hard ground, but fell into a soft place. Chunji wrapped her arms around Noah's neck, pulled Noah onto her body, and then she fell down. She blushed, closed her eyes, and said timidly, "Please, please take pity on me." Noah was stunned. After a while, Noah finally reacted. He looked at Chunji, whose face was flushed red and her breathing quickened. She looked like she was at his mercy, and her clothes were half undone. He immediately laughed dryly. I suddenly want to enjoy good wine and delicacies first. Hearing this, Chunji opened her eyes. She looked at Noah with tears in her eyes as she spoke. Are you dissatisfied with Chunji, my lord? No. Noah hurriedly said. There's absolutely no such thing. Then you're not used to taking the initiative. Chunji showed a determined expression. In that case, let Chunji dress you up. With that, Chunji suddenly turned over and sat on Noah. Huh. Noah made a sound that sounded like he had lost his mind. At this time, Chunji was already reaching out to Noah's clothes with trembling hands and unbuttoning Noah's clothes. Wait a minute. Noah almost subconsciously tried to stop him. However, at this time, Chunji had already unbuttoned Noah's clothes, exposing his upper body. Looking at Noah's broad chest, Chunji's eyes suddenly widened, and her beautiful face sunk into an unprecedented red. Then, something that even Noah didn't expect happened. Ugh! Chunji's eyes suddenly rolled and her head drooped. Without any warning, she fainted and fell onto Noah's body. Hugging the girl's soft body and looking at the girl who suddenly fainted, Noah's mouth twitched and he was speechless. What's the situation now? Chapter 2007. In the room filled with a strange fragrance, Noah carried the fox girl, who was only covered by a red kimono, to the bed and laid her down. Only then did he have time to think about the current situation. Looking at the unconscious fox girl, Noah sighed and muttered to himself. Could it be that she fainted because she was too shy? If that was the case, then Noah really wanted to scream. What kind of prostitute is this? Noah was speechless and helplessly muttered. But this is a good opportunity. Muttering like that, Noah turned his gaze to Chunji's back. As the saying goes, mice have their own ways and snakes have their own paths. While the gods developed a method to lock ability values, some busybodies also developed a method to unlock ability values to reveal the hidden ability values. It was a tool called the unlocking medicine. As long as one dripped it on the back of the person who received the favor and followed the correct steps, then the lock of grace set by the gods could be unlocked. To create this tool, two conditions must be met. 1. The creator must learn the mystery development ability. Without the ability to create miracles, even the most brilliant person would not be able to unlock the lock of grace set by the gods, let alone create the relevant tools. 2. The creator must use the god's blood as the material to create the unlocking medicine. The god's blood was the necessary medium to carve and alter the grace. At the same time, the medium to lock ability values was also the god's blood. In other words, the god's blood was the key needed to carve and alter ability values. Without this key, even if the mystery was trained to the highest level, it would still be impossible to create the unlocking medicine. Of course, because the material was the god's blood, this tool could only be found by chance. Without the god's permission, forcefully unlocking the lock of grace set by the gods was naturally not allowed, and at the same time, it was also an immoral thing to do. After all, it could be said to be an illegal tool used to peek at other people's ability values. Because of this, the unlocking medicine could only be bought in the black market. As for the price, it was even more expensive than the panacea that could instantly heal any injury. Naturally, Noah did not have the time to go to the black market to prepare such an item. Besides, Noah didn't have enough money to buy this kind of item at the moment, so of course he didn't have the antidote on him. However, Noah did not need the antidote. This was because Noah had already obtained the method to unlock it. When Noah returned to his tribe, he told Hestia about the lock. Hestia then asked her close friend Hephaestus about it. Noah then learned how to lock and unlock the lock from Hestia. Now that he knew how to unlock it, all that was left was to use the god's blood as a medium. Noah didn't have that either.